And good evening to everybody across the Sunshine State. Welcome to the Drive to State Playoff Show. First of them as we go through the playoffs, all playoff season long. That's right. We'll do this as a playoff breakdown of all the brackets as the FHSAA released the brackets this morning across the Sunshine State. For all 9 classifications, 224 teams are headed to the playoffs here around the Sunshine State. And definitely want to appreciate everybody that is tuning in here and as we come to you live. And, we did this while we waited a little bit after the playoffs. So, first off, a lot of y'all watch NFL games. I have a lot of games in the 1 o'clock bracket. I know there's a big game going on in the 4 o'clock bracket for today, but kind of waited till get you the majority of the NFL games out of the way, especially the 2 teams in Florida that are playing this week, the Dolphins and the Buccaneers. So got that kind of out of the way here and everything. But appreciate you joining us here. Joshua Wilson, FHSFootball.com. And, of course, you can leave the comments in the chat box on if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. You can leave your comments there as well. We'll answer your questions along the way during the show and everything else. That way, questions, anything that you really got. We'll even talk about some of the hot button topics that have come up here in the last few hours here, especially the thing about pace. That's a big thing. And we'll have a roundtable at 6 o'clock that includes the GOAT, Larry Blustein, Dan LaForest from Central Florida High School Football Scoreboard Show, Mike Ridaught, Main Street Daily News, theprepzone.com, and Irish Bill of Irish Bill Sports out in the Panhandle. And Irish Bill will be able to really kind of break it really down, especially on the whole thing about pace. It's definitely it came down to a matter of points in terms of what the rating was in the games. And of course, there's some things that crazily went happen in Class 4S Region 1. So we'll talk about that here as we go through here this evening here on the playoff bracket breakdown show and everything across that way. But again, a lot going on around here in the Sunshine State. It is the second season, as they say. It is playoff time here in the state. And really, at this particular point, we're just going to kind of highlight some of the key matchups that we're already seeing. There's a lot of rematches from the regular season sitting here on the schedule in terms of the playoff brackets. Just looking at it, it's really, really interesting to see what we've got here. And then there's some interesting matchups that we haven't seen yet this year. But again, a lot of rematches here based upon how the rankings fell for the final set of rankings here during the 2023 season. And it's hard to believe that we're already here at playoff time. All right, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and launch into Class 1R Region 1 here. And, of course, as you see here, we've got Bozeman sitting at the number 1 seed. Bozeman, 10-0. Congratulations to the Bucks, who the first time ever, perfect regular season for the Bozeman Bucks, get a bye, so they will advance into the regional semifinals in not this week, but next week around the 17th of November. That'll be where they will be at in there. And same goes for Holmes County, earning that number 2 seed right there. And, of course, very interesting. A lot of this, if you see this looks familiar from Tuesday because a lot didn't really change here in terms of what happened between the last set of rankings during the regular season on Tuesday and the other set of rankings that came out today. So that is the biggest difference, is that you don't really see too many big differences. And, again, there's only a couple of slight differences and maybe a flip-flop here and there in terms of the seeding. But what you saw Tuesday night from us here on FHSFootball.com, it's almost pretty much the same here as what the FHA released here earlier today. And looking at it, Northview J, Vernon Chipley, very interesting matchups, I will say right here. I mean, Jade, Northview, they've already played each other this year once, and Northview won that contest, so it's very interesting. Northview has struggled this year, obviously, a lot of graduation losses from last year and all that. So that is a lot right there to take in right there. But and then, and that's the thing, and we're going to answer these questions as we go along the way. So, let me go ahead and explain it real quick here. We're going to go through the 1 classes. We're going to go through 1R, 1S, 1M, and then we're going to go 2S, 2S, 2M, 3S, 3M, 3M, and then 4M, 4S, and then 4M. And then that's how we're going to proceed with it here tonight. So we're going to go through the classifications going from 1 to 4. And so we'll kind of answer the questions here as along the way as we see that here. And then, of course, you got Chipley, Vernon sitting in that 3-6 spot. And Michael Peterson chimes in why Northview should have to travel to J when they already beat them head-to-head and have a very tougher string of schedule. Just wondering. Well, it's a basic combination of based upon the factors. We don't know the formula. It's based on the Max Preps formula. It's a modified formula that takes out margin of victory. So there is no margin of victory when it comes to playoff rankings and everything like that in what the formula that the FHSAA uses. This not just applies to football. This applies to every sport that uses the FHSAA modified Max Preps ranking. So again, no margin of victory at all in this. And you know what? It really frustrates a lot of people, I think, in a lot of opinion. I think, to be honest with you, I'll give you some opinion here, some unsolicited opinion. Margin of victory should be a part of this, whether it be 35-point margin of obviously running clock is a 35-point or higher to start a running clock. Maybe it should be 35. Maybe you cap it at 3 touchdowns, which would be 21 points. Or, whatever the margin of victory is. Maybe it's a cap margin of victory. Maybe it's just a wide open margin of victory is based upon. But at the end of the day, not having margin of victory really, I think, is kind of it doesn't, it should be a factor. It really should be a factor in these rankings. And Michael, that I hope that answers your question on that one. I know it's frustrating. You already beat Jay head to head, but y'all are going to have to go, and that's how the seedings fell. And it's just seeded true seeding 1 through 6, and that's the way it's set by the FHSAA. And again, guys, this was the formula at the end of the day. What was voted upon to go for football to go with the rest of the FHSAA Max Preps rankings versus the RPI that was used before that. It really comes down to several different things here. It really leads a lot into the things, and the RPI really kind of had people saw the formula, and I think that's what a lot of people would wish they'd go back to, but I really don't know what's going to happen. There's a discussion tomorrow, the FHSAA classifications. There'll be a discussion tomorrow at the FHSAA Board of Directors meeting, and we'll see what happens there, and we'll just go from there and kind of report to you back on that here. But right now, we're going to focus on the playoffs on this particular part. But and yeah, good evening to you, Charles Bell. Real quick here, he's tuned in, ready. So the LaForest, defending state champs over there, he's talking about Lakeland right there, and it's going to be a little bit of a wait, but we're going to roll right through this, try to get y'all through here and everything. So we definitely appreciate everybody tuning in here on the Drive the State show as we break down everything about the rankings here and about the playoff brackets as we go through here through this evening here. All right, rolling along to Region 2 in Class 1R, Blustein and Ocilla Christian, Port St. Joe take the 1 and 2 seeds. Ocilla Christian, who had been recently the last few weeks, even up to this past Tuesday, was sitting in that number 2 seed, slid back. Port St. Joe taking that number 2 seed. Ocilla Christian now hosting Weehawken in that 3-6 spot. And then, of course, in the 4-5 matchup is Sneads Cottonelle. So that'll be 2 Jackson County teams right there going out in that 4-5 spot there in the regional quarters. So it will be very, very interesting to see how this region shakes out. It's been a lot of, I would say, parity in this region. Blustein has struggled at times this year. Port St. Joe. So are we on a collision course to see Blustein and Port St. Joe in the regional finals? We'll find out and see here in the next few weeks. All right. Heading into Region 3, Madison County, Fort White, 1-2 seeds. We've seen that the last few weeks. They hold on, take the 1-2 seeds right there. Really nothing changed here in terms of how the seeding was when we saw that Tuesday. All right. Lafayette, Branford, 4-5. Lafayette's already beaten Branford this year, so that's a rematch. Union County is going to be hosting Hilliard, 3-6 matchup. Hilliard has struggled a little bit, new head coach this year. But Union County, 6-3 this year. They've struggled a little bit this year too. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this region shapes up. But right now, Madison County, Fort White look like they're on a collision course to meet in the regional finals. So we'll see what happens there, of course, along the way. And got some people already sharing here. The Madison County Cowboys already are excited about that. They are excited. And of course, Michael Parsons is like Madison County in a breeze. We will see what happens, Michael, along the way. All right. So a couple other things I will say in this, as long as we're going through this. If you got a question for the panel after 6, hold on to that question. We will pop those questions up as we talk to the panel. We're going to have discussion. We're going to have a lot of different things to talk about, but this is going to be fun. It's hard to believe we're, again, the second season, and this is it. This is what we're putting up here is what the FHSAA showed us this morning, just our graphics, so you can see a nice visual representation as we go through it. All right. There was some debate and controversy on this one here in a moment of number one, Williston sitting there, that 1 seed here in Region 4, Hawthorne sitting there at that number 2 seed here in that region. And I'll tell you, this one came down to it. If you really want to look at why Williston is the 1 seed this year compared to Hawthorne being the 1 seed last year, Williston basically redid almost the majority of their schedule this year, and it included a lot more teams, a lot of stronger teams. So that is the biggest difference this year. Why Williston is in the 1 seed compared to Hawthorne at the 2. I also think Hawthorne not playing one less game may have hurt them a little bit, but obviously the strength of schedule. I'm going to go through this after we do the show tonight. I'm going to start looking at the number of playoff teams based upon the schedule each team has played. I really want to look at that because it really is intriguing. I've already looked at a couple of teams, and it's already intriguing to see the teams that made the playoffs. How many teams on their schedules made the playoffs? And I really will say it's really going to be really, really interesting to see. Number 1, Wilson is rewarded with a date with Pahokee in the semis. Good events. Michael Parsons. I mean, but Pahokee has struggled this year, Michael. I'm kind of worried about things. And then, by the way, that's supposed to be saying that Williston for Hawthorne. When I was creating the graphic, I was putting advance, and so I apologize if you see the Madison Fort White on there, but on the thing. But it should say Williston and Hawthorne. The bracket's right. I just didn't switch that when I was creating the final bracket for Region 1 because this is the only classification in Class 1R is the only classification that has 2 byes. Everybody else does not have a bye. Well, I guess you could say 1S and 1M, they're on a bye this week, but that's all the teams. So it's really not a bye because they don't have a regional quarterfinal round. So we'll get that to here in a moment here as we get rolling along. All right. As we roll this along here, it just really, really, as I was saying, the way the scoring is set up, teams get rewarded for playing good teams, even if they lose 60-0, which doesn't make sense. Deuce 1, that's the thing. It really is interesting because when the FHA set this whole thing up, they asked Max Preps to remove the margin of victory. To be honest, I feel like if margin of victory was part of this, even if it was capped, I think we would see some differences in there. I really think we would see some differences. I think the rankings would be more in line, closer to what we actually see on Max Preps. I really believe that would be the case. But a margin of victory cap, I just think really, that would probably be the best way. I wouldn't say just go flat out straight margin of victory, go with a cap margin of victory. But again, there's going to be the question about sportsmanship. And those have always been the biggest questions. Why do we not have margin of victory in this? That's the biggest reason why right there. They're afraid that's going to encourage teams to basically run up the score. So that's pretty much what the whole thing is. I say this, Michael, Madison County versus Hawthorne and Tallahassee. Who else? Williston might have a word to say about that. So we'll keep an eye on that right there. That I can say. All right. Rolling along here, let's recognize those district champs sitting here in Class 1S. Here we go. Northwood Christian District 1, St. John Paul II District 2, Trinity Catholic District 3, Melbourne Central Catholic District 4, Zephyrhills Christian takes the District 5 championship for the first time in school history. Congratulations to the Zephyrhills Christian Warriors. Cardinal Mooney in District 6, Evangelical Christian in 7, and First Baptist, your defending Class 1S state champion, sitting there as the District 8 winner here as we go along here. All right, as we move along here and everything that we've got here, we're going to keep continuing to roll here with talking about everything across the Sunshine State in terms of the brackets. And as we go into Class 1S regions 1 and 2, here it is as the breakdown as we go further. North Florida Christian sitting at the 1 seed, St. John Paul 2nd, 2, and then Maroon Day 4, McClay 3. So North Florida Christian will host Maroon Day and the regional semifinals. Again, the regional semifinals will be not this week, but next week, as these teams are going to be on a bye. 1S and 1M, those two classifications are going to be on bye weeks this coming week. So all teams, they're going to sit at home, get some rest here, and then get ready for the regional semifinals on November 17th. All right. Going a little bit further here in Region 2 in Class 1S, Halifax Academy earns their first playoff berth in program history. So Halifax Academy is in. Melbourne Central Catholic will be the 1 seed. They won their district in District 4. The District 3 winner, Trinity Catholic, who got the 3 seed, will host Holy Trinity. Holy Trinity will go on the road to Trinity Catholic, and they will play the Celtics there on the road. So in that 2-3 matchup, Trinity Catholic will actually host in that game on the 17th of November. All right, rolling along here into Class 1S Regions 3 and 4. Again, you see Zephyr Hills Christian, who won the District 5 championship. They are sitting there at that 1 seed. Victory Christian gets the number 4 seed, Lakeland Christian 2. And Lakeland Christian, in this situation, they will go to Cardinal Mooney, who won the District 6 championship. They will travel in that regional semifinal round again on November 17th. And of course, looking at Region 4, Evangelical Christian will make the trip to First Baptist, while Community School will host Moorhaven in that regional semifinal round. Again, I will tell you this right now. It is very interesting. It's only the majority of the teams in 1S. There's only 23 teams in 1S. 16 made it. So that tells you we're maybe, hey, I know there's some complaints here about some of this stuff right here. So I totally understand where some of y'all complain about it. It's right here. 16 of the 23 teams in 1S this year, they're in the playoffs. And that's all she wrote there on that one. All right. And yes, as we conclude the 1S, yes, Michael Parsons, Trinity Catholic finally gets a break playing in their own classification. Yes, Trinity Catholic, probably one of the strongest schedules. They graduated some guys from last year that definitely played an impact on them with the way their record was. 3-7 this year. I mean, 3-7, but they won their district. They hit actually, and out of those 3 wins, one of them was a forfeit win. They had a game against Central Florida Christian. That Central Florida Christian didn't have enough players and ended up forfeiting to Trinity Catholic. And it's definitely one of those interesting things that we'll see. Can Trinity Catholic win a state championship with 7 losses? I mean, I've seen a team win a state championship with 5 losses. That was Jefferson County did that. I believe actually Miami Northwestern did that too. And I want to say 2018. Yes, 2018. Miami Northwestern had like 5 losses too that year. And, again, it really tells you, sometimes, the strength of schedule, that's going to be the key factor as we watch here over the next few weeks. The teams that played the strongest schedules versus the teams that may have had weaker schedules. Let's see what the margin of victory is in some of these games. And let's look at the margin of victories from the last couple of years in terms of the playoffs, because that's going to be important. Because this is year 2 of Metro Suburban. Is the margin of victory, does it shrink even further this year compared? It did shrink last year. Will it shrink this year? That's the biggest question. We will see what happens here over the next few weeks with the margin of victory. So we'll keep that in mind. All right. Rolling along here to Class 1M, Regions 1 and 2 here in a moment. Well, we've got the district champions here. Trinity Christian wins District 1 in Class 1M. Orlando Christian Prep in District 2. CCC, Clearwater. District 3, Northside Christian. District 4, Cardinal Newman in District 5. Chaminade Madonna, your defending state champs in Class 1M in District 6. True North captured the District 7 championship on Thursday night. And Archbishop Carroll took the District 8 championship. So those are your 8 district champions here in Class 1M as we roll along here on the drive to state show. All right. Rolling along here into 1M, Regions 1 and 2. Trinity Christian is number 1, University Christian number 4. That is going to be a rematch. Those two, that was a 14-0 decision here earlier this year in the regular season that gave Trinity Christian the inside track to win the district. And looking at this is a rematch from, obviously rematch from regular season. There's also, remember, rematch from the regional finals last year where University Christian upset Trinity Christian. So can University Christian and Trinity Christian packing again, as Michael Parson asked here? That is a very good question. But I'll tell you this, Michael, based upon looking at everything statistical wise, the rosters, everything that I've looked up on University Christian so far, this might be a tough one, but I will never say never in this situation. I will never say never here. So that's how we're going to do it. All right. Looking at that, Orlando Christian Prep will host Providence in the 2-3 matchup. And then, of course, Region 2, Indian Rocks Christian will travel to CCC. And then Carrollwood Day in the 2-3 matchup. Carrollwood Day will travel to the 3 seed Northside Christian, who is a district champion. And that is a look at regions 1 and 2 in the brackets, of course, then rolling into regions 3 and 4. All right. Chaminade took that number 1 seed, will host Vanguard, who already steamrolled earlier this year, so that could be an easy night there for Chaminade come the 17th of November. A rematch of Cardinal Newman and Benjamin. Cardinal Newman beat Benjamin just a few weeks ago, 17-14. So this is going to be a game that everybody's going to be keeping an eye on here in Class 1M as those two teams go back and battle it out. And of course, whoever wins that game is going to end up having a date with Chaminade. So we will see what happens here. Benjamin has been playing some really strong football. Cardinal Newman, the same thing as well for both of them. So both the Cardinal Newman Crusaders and the Benjamin Buccaneers, they are on a collision course right now. Either one of them could be playing Chaminade come Thanksgiving weekend. So keep that in mind here. True North, that 1 seed. Westminster Christian takes the 4 seed. Archbishop Carroll 2, Palmer Trinity 3 there in region 4. And I'll tell you, this could be very interesting. True North was a state semifinals last year. They got the inside track. They may end up looking at a potential date here in the state semifinals with Chaminade potentially again, depending on how what the remaining teams that are left for the Final Four. And of course, we'll look at that as we get closer. Once we get closer to that Final Four stage, that regional finals, we will look and see what the possibilities are for who could host the state semifinals and who might have to go on the road. So we will look at all the possibilities, all the scenarios on FHSAAfootball.com. All right. We're going to take a 1-minute water break here, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get into the Class 2S and 2M brackets. So we appreciate everybody watching here on the Drive the State show here as we break down everything across the 9 classifications in the playoff brackets from the FHSAA. We'll be right back here in 60 seconds right here on FHSAAfootball.com and the FHSAAfootball.com social media platforms. All right, welcome back here on the Drive the State playoff show here as we look at Class 2S. We're going to roll into Class 2S, and we've got 16 district champions here. Walton South, Walton, Florida High, Wakulla, Baker County, all the way down to Bishop Row. You see the 16 teams that we've got here. Congratulations to all 16 teams that have reached the playoffs here in Class 2S. And definitely, it's going to be some interesting matchups as we get rolling here in terms of what we're going to see here in the matchups here in a moment here. And then we're going to roll into Region 1 and 2S. And looking at it right now, and we'll go from there. You got the number 1 seed, Walton, and they're going to end up hosting South Walton at the number 8 spot. So a battle of Walton County sitting there in the 2S bracket here as we roll along here. And again, it's going to be really interesting to see these two teams have got some history with each other. So the Braves and the Seahawks are going to go at it. Suwannee will travel to Pensacola Catholic in that 4-5 matchup, while Wakulla hosts Gaston County in the 2-7, and then Florida High is going to have a rematch with Mariana in that 3-6 matchup to open up the Region 1 playoffs in Class 2S this coming week. All right, sitting here in Region 2 in 2S, we've got Bradford sitting at the number 1 seed. Bradford, a state semifinalist from last year, looking pretty good as they will host the number 8 seed Port Orange Atlantic Sharks here this week. In a 4-5 matchup that was just flip-flopped. Eastside was sitting in the 5 seed. Palatka was sitting in a 4 seed on Tuesday, but they just flip-flopped spots. But Eastside will host Palatka in a 4-5 matchup on Friday. Keep in mind that we will also talk about another matchup at the Starrett Stadium Citizens Field, and we'll talk about that here in the Class 4S bracket here coming up here pretty soon. All right, looking at the 2-7 matchup, you got Yulee Keystone Heights in the 3-6, a rematch between Baker County and Baldwin. Keystone Heights, I believe they were 1-9 last year, finished this year 6-4 in the regular season. And I'll tell you what, Keystone Heights, one of two teams in Clay County to make the playoffs this year, but a great improvement for the Indians here as they reach the playoffs here in 2023 under new head coach Steve Reynolds. Rolling along here into Region 3 in Class 2S, we got Cocoa hosting Eustis, who won the District 10 championship. They will host in that 1-8 matchup right there, while Hudson will host Dunellen in the 4-5 matchup here as well in that first part of the bracket in Region 3 in Class 2S. South Sumter will host Notre Coast in the 2-7, while Titusville will get a rematch with Palm Bay in that 3-6 matchup here in Region 3. All right, rolling into Region 4 in Class 2S. And just a reminder, coming up here after 6 o'clock, we are going to have the roundtable panel. We have got the GOAT, Larry Blustein from Prep RedZone Florida and LarryBlustein.com, Dan LaForest of the Central Florida High School Football Scoreboard Show, and of course the FloorHSFootball.com as well. And then we also have Mike Ridaught from Main Street Daily News and the PrepZone.com, up here in the Gainesville, Ocala region. And of course, we'll also have Irish Bill Hammel from Irish Bill Sports out in the Panhandle. And a great panel here to talk about playoffs from all different corners of the state. And we're definitely appreciate everybody watching here as we are live right here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or the platform we all call now X. So we'll definitely talk about that here in a moment. Region 4, Bishop Verot sitting there at that number 1 seed. Bishop Verot 9-1 on the regular season, gets that number 1 seed, and they will host Mulberry in that 1-8 matchup. In a 4-5 matchup, it's Estero and Hardy, and Estero will travel to Hardy, who won their District 2S14 in a battle of Wildcats. And I'll get the Emery Smith's comment here in just a moment here. I know he's been waiting to see this. Fort Meade in that 2 spot, hosting Sarasota Booker in the 2-7 matchup, and Lemon Bay in that 3-6 matchup with Frostproof there in Region 4. And good evening, Emery Smith. Wildcats, yes, that's definitely Wildcats versus Wildcats. I think it will be a close and competitive game. However, whoever wins will unfortunately get running clocked by Bishop Verot in the second round. That's probably going to be a big thing right there. It's going to be interesting. Bishop Verot has definitely been a really, really strong team this year, and it's their region to lose. I would say that. And Michael Parsons agrees along the way. Bishop Verot might own the region. So that definitely is going to be some strong possibilities right there. And when we're talking about this and looking at all that, when we see this. And of course, on Tuesday night, we'll come back. We will make some predictions here on the Drive the State. We'll have show number 2. We're lining up some guests for Tuesday night. We'll be on 8 to 10. We're kind of taking a break from the regional segmented shows that we did during the regular season, because we're going to focus on the playoffs, because everything matters now. It's either win or go home now for everybody. So that's what we're going to do here and everything. And all right. Verges Deshaun Broxton. He thinks Florida High versus Cocoa in a rematch. And I tell you man, that could be a possibility, but I think Bishop Verot might have a word to say about all of this, because right now, as it's looking, the Bishop Verot and Cocoa had some of the highest power rating. I know Cocoa had like one of the best power ratings in Class 2S, if not the best in Class 2S when I was looking at the rankings. And let me go ahead and just pull that up here real quick here. Let me bring that back up here on the power ranking, on the power ratings, because that's all you're going to really need to know is that, I think it's Bishop Verot and then Cocoa is the first 2 teams. And when I was looking at that earlier, I think it's going to be Cocoa versus Verot. That's going to be really interesting. And the thing, Bradford could have a say another word state too, because we've got to remember Bradford has been playing some really good, strong football too. And I saw Bradford Friday night against Swanee, and man, that defense was playing lights out Bradford didn't yield a point until the final second. Let's just talk about that one for a moment. Bradford didn't yield a point until the final second. That tells you everything you should know about that Bradford defense. They are going to play from end zone to end zone and from sideline to sideline. You cannot count Bradford out of this year. Bradford is definitely much more improved than they were at this time last year. They remembered that game against Swanee last year. They didn't let it happen again this year. So with that said, yes, I think, to be honest with you, the way the Final Four is going to be, I mean, you know what? It could be Florida. I'm not so sure about Walton, even though Walton's a 1 seed. I like to think that Florida, it's going to be if the Final Four this year again, it may be the same Final Four teams again that we had last year in 2S. I really think it is going to be that possibility. I really, really do think that's going to be that possibility. So, and Emery Williams Smith says, yes, he was thinking Coco versus low, and you know what? Keith Simmons, I know what you said. Coco won't lose. Coco's probably the spot on favorite right this second in Class 2S. I don't disagree with you there. Coco has been playing really, really great football. Really tough schedule. Can't deny that the Tigers are going to not be in that driver's seat to win that state title. And of course, Michael Parsons says, and Bradford, don't count them out. Absolutely, do not count them out. And of course, right here, Brian Boyd, Wakulla is tough. Yes, Wakulla is tough. Finished the regular season 10-0. So we'll see if the War Eagles have a word to say and everything and all that. And of course, as we roll along here into the Class 2M bracket here, as we get set, we're going to recognize those district champions. We got the 16 district champions here in Lakewood, which we did not know who was going to win the district in then District 8. They on Tuesday, well, here they are. They are the district champs, and there's your entire slate of district champions from Class 2M as we get into the brackets here in 2M. All right. Looking at that Region 1, let me pull that thing right down real quick here. There we go. We got it. Sorry about the comments sitting there in the way there. I forgot to pull that down real quick, but here we go. Class 2M Region 1, Reigns will end up hosting Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson slid in through the back door just slightly there to get that final spot. So Andrew Jackson, that number 8 spot right there with Reigns hosting there. So a short trip right there. Bowles and Bishop Kenny in a 4-5 matchup. That'll be a rematch from going back a couple weeks ago. Bowles ran all over Bishop Kenny there, especially in the final quarter of that game. So Bowles hosting Bishop Kenny again for the second time in the last 3 weeks. Coming up here this week, Riverside will host Episcopal in the 2-7 matchup, and Bishop Moore draws Ed White in that 3-6 matchup there in Region 1. And William Hankerson does say, Bradford, real quick before we move along, Bradford defense, a monster. So, yes, he is definitely right about that. They are a monster here. And Michael Parsons here, watch out for the Red Hot Hornets. He's talking about Bishop Moore. They are red hot. They started out the season 0-3, but have been really kicking it into gear ever since with everything they have done here to close out the regular season and get into the playoffs as the district champs in District 4 in Class 2M. All right, rolling into 2M, Region 2 here. Definitely an interesting situation here because a lot of people have talked about this on social media, especially on Twitter. Berkeley Prep, that 1 seed, they're going to have to travel to Middleton, and as Middleton, who's the 8 seed in that first round in the regional quarters there, even though Berkeley Prep finished with the highest power rating in the region in Region 2. Robinson in a 4-5 matchup with Tampa Catholic. That's a rematch right there. Robinson won that game earlier this season by 1 point. So Tampa Catholic is probably chomping at the bits for this rematch. That cost Tampa Catholic the district championship and ended up going the Robinson's way. And then, of course, in that 2-7 matchup, Calvary Christian of Clearwater is going to host Lakewood. Lakewood has struggled this year. Lakewood got in because of the tiebreaker, but Lakewood has been really, really struggling. So we will see if the Spartans have anything to give the Warriors this coming week. And, of course, Clearwater draws Blake in that 3-6 matchup and battle two at-large teams there. So Clearwater and Blake in that 3-6 matchup there in 2M Region 2. Rolling into 2M Region 3, we got American Heritage hosting North Broward Prep, who in the last week was sitting there at the 8th seed, and they got themselves secured the playoff spot there, the 1-8 matchup against Plantation American Heritage. Kings Academy draws Somerset Canyons in that 4-5. Cardinal Gibbons in that 2-7 with Stranahan. That is a interesting matchup, and I believe there was some chatter there that Cardinal Gibbons was feeling like Stranahan was going to be their opponent, and sure enough, that has happened here. And, of course, then St. Andrews and Calvary Christian of Fort Lauderdale in a 3-6 of 2 district champions right there in that 3-6 matchup in Class 2M Region 3. Rolling into 2M Region 4 here, we've got Miami Norland hosting St. Brendan in the 1-8 matchup. St. Brendan district champ in 2M 15, but they end up drawing the Miami Norland Vikings, who have been just lights out this year. I've played in some competitive contests, won the district, took 2M13 out from under Miami Central, who is the defending state champ. Miami Central does draw the number 2 seed. They will get number 7 Miami Edison in that 2-7 matchup. But not to forget the 4-5 matchup, Monsignor Pace and Gulliver Prep. Gulliver Prep will host that as they are the district champion in District 16 in Class 2M. So Monsignor Pace and Gulliver Prep will play in that 4-5 matchup, and Booker T. Washington will host North Miami Beach in a 3-6 matchup right there. And what's interesting, I think one of the takes that I pull away from this is there is no Miami Northwestern in this bracket. A lot of people were like, well, what happened to Miami Northwestern this year? New coach, Michael Lee Harris, took over. Some struggles there for the Bulls. And, even though with a tough schedule, it wasn't enough to get themselves in. And Miami Northwestern will be sitting at home this season. So very, very interesting right there as we have looked at the Class 2S and 2M regions here in the playoff brackets. We're going to take a 1-minute water break. We're going to come back, and then we're going to take a look at Class 3S, and then we'll get the Class 3S and 3M, and then Class 4M and 4S here along the way here on the Drive the State bracket playoff show here on FloatHSFootball.com. We'll be right back right after this. All right, welcome back here on the Drive the State show here, the show that we break it down everything with the playoff brackets, and then we'll be talking playoffs through the rest of the season, all the way up through the state championships in Tallahassee at Ken Riley Field at Bragg Memorial Stadium in Tallahassee. Come the second weekend of December, going to be a very exciting time with all 9 classifications there playing at FAMU. At Bragg Memorial Stadium on the campus of Florida A&M University, I should say. Getting all that out. It's a long-winded sentence there in that. But let's roll into Class 3S here. As you look at it, you got the 16 district champions here. There were no district tiebreakers to speak of here. Every district was decided upon after week 10, and here we are. And then you see the list of Choctaw, Lincoln, Columbia, St. Augustine. There's Mainland sitting there, defending state champ Lake Wells. They won their district sitting there. And, of course, you got some other teams that are thing. And Golden Gate, who won their first district championship ever in school history, sitting there in that district 16 slot there, winning that district there. So all 16 of these teams are in the playoffs here, as you see on your screen. And we're going to roll into Region 1 in Class 3S here as we see St. Augustine sitting there at that number 1 seed to host number 8 Middleburg, who Middleburg in the playoffs, back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time since 1980, 1990. So congratulations to the Broncos on that, but very tough St. Augustine team up ahead here for this coming week here. Pine Forest, Escambia in that 4-5 matchup. Of course, we'll talk to Irish Bill about that one, how Pine Forest was able to slide into that 4th spot right there, especially a tough schedule this year for the Pine Forest Eagles there under first-year head coach Tony Carter there. All right. Looking at the 2-7 matchup, you got Lincoln and Matanzas. Matanzas had a really strong year, a really good year, and they got themselves rewarded with a playoff spot. And, of course, Choctaw is going to host Columbia in that 3-6 matchup, a battle of district champs right there. But Columbia losing to Vero Beach did cost them that home playoff spot they would have likely gotten, but it would have been in that 4-5 matchup if that had happened. So, with that said, there's your Region 1 bracket in Class 3S. Of course, if you got any questions, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can go and put a comment in the chat, especially, if you're watching on Twitter. and you don't leave a comment on the Twitter, go to youtube.com/4HSFootball, and then you can leave a comment in the chat stream there, and we will pop that up here as well, because for whatever reason, Elon Musk does not allow comments to flow into the streaming platforms anymore, regardless of what streaming platform you're using, and to pop those comments up. So can't bring in the Twitter comments, unfortunately, but I can do that on Facebook and YouTube. I can bring those comments in. So if you got a question, comment, pop up in the chat, and we'll answer that question along the way here as we roll along here with the rest of the show. All right. Looking at Region 2, you got Vanguard sitting in that 1 seed, River Ridge, who won back-to-back district titles here for the second straight year. They're sitting there at the 8 seed. They're going to go to Vanguard here in that first round matchup. Zephyr Hills will host Cypress Creek out of Wesley Chapel in that 4-5 matchup, and that'll be a rematch right there as well. Lake Wells hosting Gulf in the 2-7 matchup, in Leesburg, who had an incredible turnaround this year, 9-1 in the regular season. They are in that 3-6 matchup with Auburndale, taking the number 6 seed here in Class 3S Region 2. All right. I'm seeing some comments pop up in the chat here. Shane Simmons, I was waiting for you to comment. I really thought, I'll be honest, I really thought about Lake Wells there, because I thought, in all honesty, when I said it Tuesday night, I thought Lake Wells was going to get that number 1 seed and jump Vanguard. I never expected this to come out like this. I thought Lake Wells would jump and get because of that, but it is so interesting. It really, really has changed them. It's like, call the police, because Lake Wells got robbed. I feel you. I hear you on that one, but definitely interesting there. All right, and of course, Michael Parsons. Hey, Shane. Michael Parsons, it feels like a regular regional final rematch, Knighton versus the Highlanders at Vanguard. That could be really interesting. So maybe some motivation for Lake Wells right there. Michael Parsons is he's really getting the chat going here tonight. I love it. I really love what I'm seeing here in terms of the interaction with all the fans here. I definitely appreciate all y'all who are interacting here on the show here. It's definitely really, really fun as we really talk about this here and everything across the Sunshine State. So definitely appreciate all y'all joining in here on the Drive the State show here as we talk about the FHSAA playoffs. Yes, I can see, because Irish Bill is already in the queue here for the second hour, and he just put a thing in the private chat here that I can see here. Playoff football, there is nothing like it. He is absolutely right. Irish Bill is definitely, I love Irish Bill. He has been a great colleague and a friend of mine, and I'm glad to have him. I'm going to be able to have him on here as part of the panel here coming up here after 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central time. So definitely appreciate it. And of course, Justin Floyd says Choctaw is good, and Michael Parsons like Lake Wells schedule's 2 weeks. Oh man. Michael Parsons, you might upset Shane there a little bit. Just be careful. Yes, so absolutely. Anyways, we're in the Class 3S Region 3 here now as we roll along here, looking at these playoff brackets. Mainland, the number 1 seed, despite losing to Lake Mary 33-0 on Friday night. Mainland holds on to that 1 seed there in Class 3S Region 3, and they will host Satellite in that 1-8 matchup. Wow. Jensen Beach will host Rockledge in the 4-5 matchup. O'Galley with a rematch in the 2-7 matchup. And Sebring hosting Fort Pierce Westwood in the 3-6 matchup. And it's a rematch right there as well. Again, we saw a lot of this, the same things, potential matchups here when we saw Tuesday, minus a few changes here. I mean, Fort Pierce Westwood, Coach Coquel, I don't know if he's watching or not, but congratulations to Coach Coquel. It's year 2. Fort Pierce Westwood is 6 seed at 7-3. He's definitely gotten Fort Pierce Westwood back on the right track, and they're right there in the playoffs. So congratulations there to the Fort Pierce Westwood Panthers there making the playoffs. But again, a rematch with Sebring in the 3-6 matchup coming up here this week. All right. Looking at Class 3S Region 4 here as we wrap up the 3S classification. Golden Gate at 1 seed there, hosting Mariner, who's won their district for the first time this century. They're sitting there in that 1-8 matchup, so Golden Gate will host Mariner this week. Dunbar's going to host Fort Myers in a 4-5 matchup, and that'll be a rematch right there. between the Tigers and the Green Wave. And the Fort Myers Green Wave, they're starting to look more impressive. They seem to have improved here in the last few weeks here as the regular season comes to conclusion. So we'll see if Fort Myers has a little bit of an answer and revenge factor sitting there for Dunbar this week. Naples sitting there 2-7 in the 2-7 matchup. They'll host Parish Community, who is that 7 seed, and of course Barron Collier is going to travel, even though they're the number 3 seed, they're going to travel to Port Charlotte in the 3-6 matchup. So Barron Collier on the road in the first round, despite being the 3 seed, as Port Charlotte won their district this year. All right. Into Class 3M we go. We got the district champions here, as you can see across the board. First Coast sitting there, District 1, Oviedo, Edgewater, Armwood, Jesuit, East Bay, Largo, St. Petersburg, Atlantic, Coconut Creek, Aquinas, Piper, South Broward, Miramar, Hialeah, and Homestead. I know I said that pretty fast, but that said, those are your district champions there in Class 3M. All 16 of those teams are in the playoffs. And as we roll along here, we've got Edgewater sitting at the number 1 seed, and they will host the district champion out of District 1, First Coast, in that 8 seed. So First Coast got the number 8 seed. They will travel to number 1 Edgewater this week. Looking at Jones and Oviedo in the 4-5 matchup, this will be a playoff rematch from last year, so that'll be a really interesting matchup right there to see if what happens there. But Jones will host Oviedo, and Oviedo is going to end up hosting Jones in the 4-5 matchup because Oviedo is a district champ, Jones is not. So Oviedo will host Jones in the 4-5 matchup. Armwood will host Wharton in the 2-7 matchup, while Tampa Bay Tech will host Fletcher in the 3-6 matchup, and that's a playoff rematch from last year as well. Looking at Region 2 in Class 3M, you'll see Jesuit sitting there at that number 1 seed. They're going to host Pinellas Park in that 8 seed. Hillsborough got the 4 seed, and they will host number 5 seed Northeast in the 4-5 matchup. Largo, the number 2 seed, will host East Bay, a district champion, a battle of district champs right there in the 2-7 slot. And St. Petersburg, who got the 3 seed by winning their district, will host Gaither in the 3-6 matchup in Region 2 in Class 3M. Rolling along here into Region 3, St. Thomas Aquinas by a mile takes the number 1 seed there, and they will host Plantation, who fell all the way to the 8 seed, just managed to get into the playoffs after a bit of a rough season here for the Colonels. And then, of course, we're looking at Blanche, Ely, and Dillard in the 4-5 matchup. That should be a really intriguing matchup right there. And then rolling along, Atlantic will host West Boca Raton in the 2-7 matchup. West Boca Raton in the playoffs for the first time in a decade, so congratulations to the Bulls there. And Coconut Creek hosting Piper in a battle of district champions. Coconut Creek, the number 3 seed, hosting Piper, the number 6 seed. And yes, and right there, we'll answer the thing about Michael Parsons says Region 3 in class in Region 1 and 3 in toughest region, but maybe that Region 3 in Class 3M may be a little tough too. We'll see what Coconut Creek has some answers there, Michael Parsons. And Coach Robert Ron has a bit of something to say. Shame First Coast is the 8 seed. Could this be Marty Lee's final year? We don't know, but at least First Coast playoff appearance, district championship. We'll see what happens here coming up here in the next few weeks, if depending if Marty Lee decides to go one more year or if he's going to finally retire. There was talk about it last year, it didn't happen, he came back, and but we'll see what happens here as we get closer and closer to the off season. All right, into Region 4 in Class 3M, we got Homestead, the number 1 seed, MacArthur, the number 8 seed. MacArthur gets in through the back door as the number 8 seed. There was some controversy about the kick against between Hialeah and Dr. Crop, and there was a field goal that was counted as good. It looked like it may have been left, but maybe potentially cost Dr. Crop a playoff spot. So MacArthur sitting there slides into the number 8 seed. And Miami Southridge will host, will actually travel to Hialeah in the 4-5 matchup. Hialeah district champion right there. So in the 4-5 matchup, Miami Southridge will go to Hialeah. South Broward will host Belen Jesuit in the 2-7, and Miramar will host American in the 3-6 matchup there in Region 4. All right, we're going to take another water break here real quick, come back, and then we're going to do Class 4S and Class 4M here, and then we're going to get set for the roundtable coming up here in the next 10 to 12 minutes here on the Drive the State playoff show here on FloydHSFootball.com and the FloydHSFootball.com social media platform. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this. All right, welcome back here to the Drive the State playoff show here as we come to you with all the FHSAA playoff brackets, breaking it down, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion coming up here at little after 6 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Central Time here. We've got Larry Blustein, Dan LaForest, Irish Bill, Hammel, and then Mike Ridaught as well. So we definitely appreciate everybody watching here as we come to you with the Drive the State show here on the FloydHSFootball.com social media platforms, and of course FloydHSFootball.com itself. And we appreciate everybody joining us here. Looking at Class 4S as we roll along here, you can see that we have the 16 district champions from across the state here. And of course, Navarre sitting there in District 1, Mosley 2. You got Buchholz, Nice, who won the district Friday night, with getting that win over Coy Creek. They are in the playoffs. Lake Mineola, Wiregrass Ranch, Lakeland, Winter Haven, DeLand, Osceola, Heritage, Treasure Coast, Manatee, Venice, Charlotte, and Immokalee. Those are your teams sitting there as district champs that are into the playoffs. And good evening to you, Jonathan Tallman. He is definitely happy about Niceville going to the playoffs, and we'll talk about Niceville here in a moment. And definitely appreciate you joining us here. And all right, here we go. Region 1 in Class 4S. All right, we've talked about earlier that a game at Citizens Field, of course, Eastside Palaca, that game will be Friday night. The game that we're seeing here now, Mosley and Buchholz. Buchholz in the 1 seed, Mosley at 8. That game will be Thursday night at Citizens Field. Buchholz hosting Mosley Thursday night at Citizens Field in Gainesville. In the 4-5 matchup, a rematch of Ponte Vedra Creekside that just happened Friday night, with Creekside getting the win and getting into the bracket here in the 4-5 matchup. So, really, really interesting that, the thing, we're going to talk about this with Irish Bill. I had a conversation a little earlier on the phone with Irish Bill about this. Of course, massive discussion on social media about why 8-2 Pace missed the playoffs, why they are not in the bracket here. So we will have a discussion about that. That's probably one of the biggest things, in terms of everything. We will talk about that here. All right, in the 2-7 matchup, you got Niceville, who is going to travel to Nice. So Niceville going to Nice, the district champion there in District 4. They will host Niceville on Friday night in that 2-7 matchup. And, of course, you got Bartram Trail that will go to – they got the number 3 seed, but they are going to travel to number 6 seed Navarre. So Navarre's hosting the first round, Bartram Trail there, and at large team there in that 3-6 matchup. All right, rolling into Region 2 here in Class 4S. Charles Bell, here's your region. I know you've been waiting for this one. Lakeland sitting there at that number 1 seed. Mitchell, who's been kind of between on the first couple teams out, and the 8 seed, they get in. They're at the number 8 seed, and they've been a decade plus strong, making the playoffs. So Mitchell is in the playoffs, but we'll have to go to Lakeland in the first round. Winter Haven, who got the District 8 championship after the tiebreaker between them, Bartow, and Haines City. Winter Haven, they're taking that 4 seed and will host Bartow in that 5 seed in that 4-5 matchup. Lake Mineola draws the 2 seed, will host number 7 Haines City. And, of course, Wiregrass Ranch will host Springstead in a rematch in the 3-6 matchup there in Region 2 in Class 4S. All right, as we look at Region 3 here in Class 4S, you see there's going to be a rematch between Treasure Coast and Kissimmee Osceola in that 1-8 matchup. Definitely love what we see here. This could be interesting. It was a really tight game here, but that rematch between number 8 Osceola and number 1 Treasure Coast, that is going to happen here in the opening round of the playoffs. Vero Beach draws the number 4 seed, but will be on the road at Palm Bay Heritage, who's got the number 5 seed, and they are a district champ. Orange City University, a number 2 seed, draws district rival New Smyrna Beach in the 2-7 matchup, and DeLand draws a district rival Spruce Creek in the 3-6 matchup. And this is very interesting. We're going to talk about this region here for a moment here, but I can tell you this is really interesting. DeLand beat Orange City University a few weeks ago, but could not jump them at all. And this is really, really, it's really one of the strange ones. I tell you, it's very, very, very strange in terms of how this all shaked out. But all 4 teams from District 4S9 in the playoffs. You don't really see that often, where all the teams in one district make the playoffs, but here they are. That tells you how good the teams are in that district alone, just with the way the scheduling. But again, it's just a little confusing why University's 2, DeLand's 3. Some people are going to ask that question, so that it's I can't totally answer it, but that's that. There it is. And Michael Parsons says Vero Beach at Palm Bay Heritage. Watch out. I agree with you. That could be that's going to be an intriguing matchup. These 4 or 5 matchups are going to be really, really intriguing. And Coach Ron, oh man, he's going out on he's going bold here. He thinks Orange City University will raid Region 3, but Treasure Coast, DeLand might have I might have a few words to say about that one. So we'll keep an eye on that one here over the course of the next few weeks. All right, Region 4 here in Class 4S. We'll get the playoff bracket set here. Venice 1, Lakewood Ranch 8 in that 1-8 matchup. Gulf Coast will go travel to Immokalee in the 4-5 matchup as Immokalee is a district champ. Manatee will host Charlotte in the Battle of District Champs in that 2-7 matchup, while Sarasota Riverview, another district champ, will host Palmetto in the 3-6 matchup here in Class 4S Region 4. And heading into Class 4M as we wrap this up here in terms of looking at the brackets, and we're getting set for the round table here. I've got Irish Bill already, Mike Ridaught, Larry Blustein already sitting there ready to go. Dan LaForest should be joining us here pretty soon as well. And we'll be setting for the round table for the 6 o'clock, the 7 o'clock hour here on the Drive to State show here on the FloatHSFootball.com social media platforms. All right, looking at it real quick, the Class 4M district champions here. You see Palm Harbor University, a team that we did not know about that was going to see if they were going to win the district or not. There was a 3-way tie sitting there, but they were definitely in the lead this past Tuesday. But Palm Harbor University wins their first district championship in school history and will host their first ever playoff game as well this week, as we will see here coming up here in a moment in the bracket. Of course, you got Plant, Durant, Jupiter, Palm Beach Central, Boca Raton, Monarch, Western, West Broward, Columbus, Miami, Palmetto, teams that a lot of people are familiar with. They are district champs, and they are guaranteed a playoff spot, and we will see them where they're lined up here in the bracket here in just a moment. As we roll into Region 1, where you see Lake Mary sitting there at that 1 seed, but they will travel to the 8 seed Boone, who's a district champ there in that first round. Winter Park and Mandarin, 2 district champs. Winter Park's going to host Mandarin in the regional quarterfinals to open, while Haggerty will travel to Sanford Seminole to open up, and Inapaka is going to host Evans in a rematch in the 3-6. And, John Duran says Seminole got screwed with a tougher schedule on one head-to-head. I mean, that's another head-scratcher. I don't disagree, but but Lake Mary beating Mainland the way they did, I think that changed a lot there in terms of that 1-2 seed right there in Region 1 in Class 4M. All right, Region 2, rolling into it. We got Sumner sitting there at the number 1 seed, Riverview squared, as we call it. Riverview get the number 8 seed, and they will go travel to Sumner there to open up the playoffs. Durant, the number 5 seed, the district champ, will go to Palm Harbor University, another district champ in the 4-5 matchup. While Plant and Plant City will host in a rematch from the district in the 2-7 matchup, and Olympia will host Dr. Phillips in a 3-6 matchup, another rematch there from district games this year. All right, rolling into Region 3. Coconut Creek Monarch gets the number 1 seed. Stoneman Douglas, who's been kind of in and out of the playoff rankings here the last few weeks, they get in as the number 8 seed. While Santa Lucia's will host Palm Beach Gardens in the 4-5. Palm Beach Central hosting Spanish River in the 2-7. And Jupiter finishing a 9-1 season, district champs. And I believe it was the first district championship in 20-some years for the Jupiter Warriors. They're going to get a home playoff game in a 3-6 matchup with Boca Raton there in Region 3. And, of course, the last but not least, the last region here that we've got to go over is Region 4. Columbus in the hosting Goldman in the 1-8. South Dade draws the 4 seed, while West Broward draws the 5, but West Broward will host, as West Broward is a district champ. So South Dade will go to Pembroke Pines on Friday night, or it might be Thursday night, depending on the scheduling, but they will go to Pembroke Pines to play West Broward here in that 4-5 matchup this week. Miami Palmetto will host Doral Academy in the 2-7 matchup, while Western will host Cypress Bay in the 3-6 matchup in Region 4. All right, looking at it, I see everybody has joined on for the roundtable. We are going to take a 1-minute water break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get the table set, and we're going to talk playoffs with our panel of guests. We've got the GOAT, Larry Blustein from Prep RedZone Florida, and LarryBluestein.com joining us here. We've got Dan LaForest from the Central Florida High School Football Scoreboard Show and FloatHSFootball.com joining us here. Got Mike Ridaught from the Prep Zone and Main Street Daily News in Gainesville, and of course Irish Bill from Irish Bill Sports. We're going to take a 1-minute break. We'll be right back right here on the Drive the State show here on the FHSFootball.com social media platforms. All right, welcome back here on the Drive the State Playoff show as we talk about playoffs from around the Sunshine State here, and definitely got a great guest panel here lined up here as we talk about the playoffs here with the brackets that have come out from the Florida High School Athletic Association today. And as I get everybody rearranged just real quick here on the screen here as we go along here, and definitely welcome everybody in here. We've got Larry Blustein, the GOAT, as of all football in this state, highly respected for 50-plus years, Prep RedZone Florida and LarryBluestein.com. And, of course, then we got Dan LaForest, the Central Florida High School Football Scoreboard here. Got Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com and the Main Street Daily News here in the Gainesville-Ocala region. Of course, Irish Bill from Irish Bill Sports in the Panhandle. And good evening to all you gentlemen. I definitely appreciate every single one of you taking your time a bit on the Sunday here. And of course, we'll have some questions from the chat here as well if during the show here for this part of the show. But guys, let me start off with this, and I'll go around. I'll start with Blue here first. Do you think the FHSAA power rankings got most of the playoffs right? And what did they get wrong? Let's start with what they got right first. Do you think they got most of the power rankings got this mostly right?
Yeah, under what their guidelines are, yeah, they got them right. I mean, I've learned over time that you could find something wrong with everything that goes on. So you ride with what you have. You have this. This was all set in stone. There's a lot of people that are upset, but there's a lot of people that are happy. But that's. I've learned, Josh, to just roll with whatever punches are thrown. So, and there's some pretty good matchups, in some of the smaller classes early on, but things really get rolling in round two. That's going to be pretty much, you could go to like 40 games around the state and not miss out on anything. But yeah, I think it's, if you're looking to go by a guideline, then they got it right.
What about you, Dan? Let's go to you, Dan. Do you think they got it right looking at everything that we got here, or we kind of...
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to the fact it doesn't matter what you do, somebody's going to complain about it. Listen, you could take one or two matchups and switch them around, and I just don't see where it's really going to make a huge difference. A lot of rematch. We're seeing a lot of rematches of contests that we saw 2-3 weeks ago, possibly a week ago. It's I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to any of it until they release the final brackets to begin with.
Now we'll go over the Mike Ridaught. What do because you got a bunch of teams in your region that have made the playoffs, and again, we're seeing a lot of rematches sitting here in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Dan that I don't pay a whole lot of attention to throughout the season. If you go and concentrate on taking care of business and you win, you're going to get in. All that stuff kind of plays out itself. But it really is like the NCAA tournament. Somebody's going to get left out. Somebody's going to get upset and felt like they should have been in. Case in point, 4S Region 1, I've seen a lot of complaints about pace, for example. And if you looked at last week's rankings, And, Buchholz was still the number one. They're the overall number one seed, so no surprise there. And they were supposed to play number 8 Mosley. But this is where it kind of got shaken up just over the course of not even a week, from Friday to Sunday, because Bartram Trail was a projected 4 seed. They end up being a number 3 seed. Navarre was going to be a 5 seed. They're now number a 6 seed. And then Ponte Vedra was going to be a 2 seed, and Ponte Vedra is now a 4 seed. That really kind of, and Nice too. Nice was supposed to, Creekside was going to be a 7 seed. Nice was going to be, they were actually going to be, where were they? They were going to be number, look at my cheat sheet here. Anyway,
they were kind of sit on the outside.
Yeah, let me make my point, though. So now you've got, instead of Bartram Trail Navarre last week, now you've got Ponte Vedra Creekside in a rematch. They just played each other last week, and Bartram Trail or Creekside beat Ponte Vedra 26-21. Now you've got Bartram Trail Navarre, Niceville, Nice. So it really shook things up over the course of really just a couple of days, which I guess kind of makes my point too, that I don't really look at it until it's done, because all that other stuff doesn't matter, other than the fact that we knew these teams were in, but now Pace is out. Pace was a 6 seed last week, and they're out now. So again, it's hard to say if they got it right. It's probably as close as they can get it to being right. You can make arguments, why teams should be in, but overall, I'd have to say they got it right, and now it's time to go play ball.
No, absolutely. And that segues to Irish Bill here on this one. And I talked to Irish Bill on the phone for a few minutes earlier regarding this, and it blew up on social media about this, that Pace missed. We all knew that somebody was going to be unhappy in Class 4S Region 1. Somebody was going to miss. Somebody was going to be unhappy. It ended up being Pace, who finished the season 8-2 and missed. And Irish Bill, I think you might have the best explanation. Why did Pace miss? And Pace had control of that entire destiny for the whole entire time, and it come down to basically points on the field. Oh, we don't hear you, Irish Bill. You might be muted. Yeah, we don't hear you, Irish Bill. So Irish Bill, if you could kind of reset there on that thing, we'll kind of come back on that question here in a moment. But when we're looking at it, Blue, going back to you here for a moment, if anything, is there something that might have been, that isn't right here when we're looking at it? Some people were complaining about North Miami Beach getting in. I think some people were kind of, scratching their head on that one, because but they played a tough schedule. So, at the end of the day, it's kind of like the playing that tough schedule. They went on the road for weeks on end. They made like a trip up to Niceville. They're going to different play these opponents. It ends up paying off for them, and they're in the playoffs. So do you feel like that? Maybe that's a little wrong, or is it actually what it's doing what it's supposed to do in that situation?
Yeah, definitely doing what it's supposed to do. Being a North Miami grad, that's a loaded question. We didn't like NMB very much, but I went to see them last week. They took care of their business. Come on. They played Lake Mary. They went up to Niceville. They played South Sumter. They played Central. They played Norland. What else do you want from them? Jeff Bertani's done a great job. He and I talked at the game last week when they played American in a must win, and they won in overtime. And he said that he hates playing home games. He gives his home games away. It's just because they don't draw very well. But not only that, he likes bonding his teams. If you remember when Rick Darlington got the job up at Enterprise and he was making those 6-figure salary, it was Jeff Bertani's team who went up there, beat him in his opening game. So, he's kind of no stranger to doing that. They've been to Georgia. They went to Lee County. So, no, he would be one team that – and the great thing about last week for many, by North Miami Beach winning, they knocked Northwestern out. And that obviously didn't sit well with a lot of people who were definitely American fans. You could see last week that all the Northwestern players and coaches were at the game cheering for American. And but I'll tell you, North Miami Beach deserves it.
No, absolutely. Let's see if we got Irish Bill. See if we can hear him now. Irish Bill. Nope, we still don't have the thing. Irish Bill, what maybe thing maybe come back out and I'll bring you back in because maybe just need a reset. So
I don't think it's that. I think he's going to his audio settings.
Yeah, go into your audio settings.
Go
into your audio settings and see what your microphone settings are set because that'll be probably where the key is. Yep, he's giving us a thumbs up here. Dan, let's go into this one here because with the question here, maybe what was wrong because some people are questioning some of these matchups it's like with especially some of these district champions having to go on the road or they're questioning some people in Jacksonville are questioning like why does Mandarin have to go to Winter Park they're 2 district champs but that's the way the FHSAA calls for it now. But what's really interesting is why is Lake Mary who's 9-1 is going to Boone? Well, Boone won the district, Lake Mary didn't. So but
exactly.
So, when we're looking.
And at the end of the day, does it really make a difference? I mean, you had some of these districts that really weren't set up with a strong strength of schedule, and I still have issue with a lot of these districts that are still made up of 2 or 3 teams. How do you have a district contest when you've got 2 members of that district? But again, and you could sit here and talk about, what yesterday we thought Apopka was going to have to travel to Mandarin. Now Apopka gets to host a home game. They've got Evans coming in. They played Evans 2 weeks ago. Mandarin goes to Mandarin goes to Winter Park, right?
Yeah. Mandarin goes to Winter Park. Yes.
Right, I think so. So,
yes.
But again, Lake Mary playing at Boone. I mean, it is what it is. And whether or not. You take a look at, why is Lake Mary over Seminole? They won head to head. Well, Lake Mary won more games. I think their defeat of Mainland kind of solidified that for them this past Friday night. And the way the brackets are set up, we're looking at a Lake Mary Seminole rematch at Lake Mary here next week or 2 weeks. So I think there's a lot of great storylines here in these brackets, and we just need to dissect them tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it definitely is really interesting how everything happened here and what we're going to dissect here and across the board here. And, Mike, is there anything else in this that you think may have been like totally like in terms of what may have gotten, wrong in terms of what you've seen over the course of the season that go into the different games here that you have watched so far through 11 weeks?
I mean, I don't think so.
Well, again,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. We'll have the discussion.
No, go ahead, Mike. I apologize.
That's all right. I was actually going to piggyback off of what Dan said anyway, talking about, 2-team districts. We had a 3-team district, East Sides district. You had a winless Santa Fe team and a 1-win North Marion team. So they won the district this year. Second time. I don't want to take anything away from East Side. Obviously, the job that Gator Hoskins has done just his second year. They won their first district title in 10 years last year, and now they've won back-to-back district titles. But they were actually a 5 seed projected last week, and now they're a 4 seed. They're going to host Palaca, and that game might be a lot closer than people think. If you compare scores, Eastside lost at Bradford 34-7. Palaca lost at Bradford 42-0. So it's not a gimme that Eastside will be able to beat Palaca. Anything can happen when you get into the postseason. By the way, Larry is truly the GOAT, but maybe you can call me the kid. Isn't a baby GOAT?
Oh, man. Let's see.
Kids, Mike.
Let's see if Irish Bill's gotten his audio straightened out or yet not. See, because I know he can hear us. Yeah, we still the thing. Irish Bill, there's a little wheel icon usually on the screen here. If you check that, it's on the screen within the thing. It might be able to check that and see if the audio setting, because it may just be where that's at. It's that setting, because once you change it, it should maybe hopefully work, because that usually what ends up being the case for me is the little wheel icon on the streaming platform that we're all on, that I'm streaming off of. You might be able to see that little setting and see if that's the case right there, because sometimes it does default to something else. So we'll go from there. But we will come back to. We will promise. Once Irish Bill gets the audio setting correct, we will circle back to the question, because we'll definitely break it down in terms of about pace and everything that happened there in Class 4S Region 1. We'll definitely come back to that here in a moment. But when we talk about surprises, we got to talk about surprises because there definitely were a few surprises. It happens every year. But Dan, let's start with you on that one. Surprises for you that you saw here that we did not see coming. What would maybe the biggest surprise for you?
Surprises as far as who's in?
Who's in, who's out, who we thought we might have been in.
I mean, you have to give a lot of credit. I think, to have a four team or a 4-6 program that wins their district in Osceola, Kissimmee, Osceola, getting into the playoffs is obviously a storyline. I'm not going to say they're not deserving of it. They had one heck of a schedule. They had a number of key injuries the first half of the year, but I think it's still a storyline, to again, be undefeated in the district, but 4-6 overall. And getting as an 8 seed, I think that's going to be a very, very interesting conversation as they're slated to go up against Treasure Coast in the first round.
Oh, absolutely. Blue, go with you on this one too. I mean, considering, you travel around the state, often and everything, just out of looking at everything that we've got here with these 224 teams that are in the playoffs. I mean, who surprised you? Because I'll say this, someone mentioned Everglades. Is that one maybe a team that, may have missed that was surprised considering they were sitting there looking like they might've been in?
Yeah, that whole district was a mess. So it didn't surprise me. I mean, probably the biggest surprise was MacArthur. I mean, how MacArthur got in, obviously it's going to be an early exit. They play Homestead, but just the fact that they got in, I'm real close with the Pace people up in the Panhandle, and I talk to Ty Wise all the time. And when I didn't see their name, I was really shocked. I just thought they played a really good schedule. They deserve, at least to be a seeded team somewhere along the line, but to be kind of X'd out of it. It's tough, Josh, to like Dan said before, you could go through basically every, class. And I just think that the neat thing is the rematches, the teams that played, a week or two ago, that are going right at it in the opening week. Dillard Ely, which is a crazy rivalry to begin with. Excuse me.
Yeah.
They go right at it. A little bit surprised how Dan LaForest, the ultimate blue darter, kind of like put his team out of competition and already fast forwarded to that third round. Now that's the biggest surprise.
Larry, I mean, come on. I mean, there's a whole storyline there. I think we need to get right into the brackets and start dissecting it.
Well, that's what we're kind of doing here in the dissecting it. I mean, it's just the thing. I can bring up the brackets here. Let me put it.
I would do that and go over the brackets where we could all comment on, because
let me get it. Yeah, let me go ahead and put the bracket up. We'll put the bracket up here in a moment here and bring the brackets up. And which the way I've got it set up is going through the rural all the way up to 4, up to the class 4. So right. we'll go from there on that. We'll just bring it up here. And
you need Bill for that one.
Yeah. So that's what we'll do is bring it up here as everybody will see here on the screen here as we got it set up here. Of course, this is 1R Region 1. I'll tell you guys, this is what what's interesting is that, 1R Bozeman 10-0 this year. To me, Bozeman, who's been a team that we really have never talked about, here they are 10-0, 1 seed. And I'm wondering what's going to be next for Bozeman. I mean, is it going to be the run to state championship? I mean, considering we'll talk about that Region 4 in a moment, but Bozeman, Blue, I think you were talking about Baker there. I mean, Baker not missing the playoffs. That's the big thing. It's that it's a name that usually we see and they're not there this year.
But they're an average team, and for last year's rural runner-up to be 3-6 and be in it in Northview. I mean, that just shows it's kind of diluted a little bit, in that area. I mean, Bonifay Holmes had a really good run this year. Bozeman, yes, I followed them all year. When I went to a camp during the summer, I ran into a lot of kids from there. I mean, they're a really, really good team. I think they'll they'll have the better chance in their region, but then they're going to have to deal with Blustein, a team that has done a real good job, and they're loaded with talent. They got 3 Division I, 3 Power 5 kids, on their team, and but on the other side is just, we know the other side is just crazy. I mean, you got Hawthorne, Williston, Madison County, and Fort White. I mean, those are really, so the Region 3 and 4, Josh, in the rural is just so much better. It really is.
No, you're absolutely right, and I did mess up on the graphic on the Region 4 one. It shows Madison County 4, right? That should be Williston and Hawthorne. They're sitting there in that 1-2 going into the thing, but it's right on the side here on the first column. That Williston, and it's so crazy to think that here we are, Williston and Hawthorne, they're going to end up having to meet in the regional final, and really they're kind of like the 2 best teams here sitting here in 1R this year, and that's not going to be for a state championship. That's going to be for the right to go play the state semifinal, and that to me is what I may be a little absurd here.
Well, like we just said, and I'm sure that Mike will back me up, having an opportunity to be in an area where they had Fort White and Hawthorne and, teams like that were really, really good. Dixie County had a pretty good year, but Williston really, really had a good year. I mean, they answered every bell. Their big thing when they went to Hudson and took care of Hudson, that kind of, made people think, oh, well, wait a minute now, this is a team. But as you mentioned, you have Hawthorne. They haven't lost a regular season game in almost 3 years now.
Yes.
They are defending state champions. They're an outstanding team, and they play a schedule. There's a lot of bigger schools that back off on them. And, and especially, another team, when we get to the 2S, in Bradford County, that's another, a team that a lot of people don't see. And I was really pleased that this year they had an opportunity to go south, Mike, and they played in Miami this year, and everybody got a chance. I kind of tried to get that game out and say, hey, listen, I know they're playing True North Academy, but Bradford County is, obviously everything goes through Cocoa, but Bradford County is really a real good football team. And, they don't have a lot, they have the kids in their area. They don't get a lot of kids from outside the area. So whatever they have in their Optimus program, but that's the same thing. We were looking at Region 1 and Region 2 of the rural. You look at Northview just didn't have a good year. And when you have a smaller school, and I'm sure that, when Irish Bill gets into the mix, he'll tell you, when you have those smaller schools, they lost 14 starters from last year's team that was the runner-up. So obviously they had a lot to build on. Bozeman returned 15 players from the year before. So obviously they were one of those teams. So yeah, you know what? It's the rural is so Region 3 and 4 bottom heavy. And and it's a shame that when you get in the second round, you're going to have some pretty good battles.
No, absolutely. You're right about that. And of course, Mike, you can back that up with what Blue just said there with all this in terms of the rural region. You got teams, maybe a Newberry who could be a dark horse sitting here somewhere along the way. That rural football is going to be pretty exciting here in the playoffs here, especially in terms of this area.
Yeah, and before I talk about 1R, I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Larry said regarding Bradford. If defense wins championships, they've got a chance to get back to the state semifinals again. Last year, they set a school record with 9 shutouts during the regular season. Guys, they're allowing 4.2 points per game this year. They're scoring 32. I think that they kind of opened some eyes, though, when they went to Miami and they beat True North Classical. I think that was kind of like their state coming out party, if you will.
Yeah.
They've got Bradford's got 4 shutouts. They've only allowed 3 total points in their last 3 games. If you've got a defense that's that good, you're going to be in some ball games. And, a play here or play there, the margin for error as you move along in the state playoffs is so small. But if they can continue to play really good defense, I think they've got at least get back to the state semifinals again this year. But getting to 1R, it's going to be fun, really. 3 and 4 are. I think the state champion is going to come from one of those two regions. I think Williston Hawthorne will probably meet in the region final. That would actually be Thanksgiving weekend. Both teams undefeated for the second straight year. So shout out to Robbie Pruitt and the job that he has done there with Williston, and a shout out to Cornelius Ingram. CI went and got some key transfers from North Marion, and now here they are undefeated for the second straight year. And they've been to 3 straight state championship games. They're the defending state champions. They are the number 2 seed region. So that's a little bulletin board material. Although I agree that the FHSAA got it right. Williston's played one more game, but as Larry mentioned, you got Hudson on the schedule. They've played up in competition every week, and I think that's the thing that makes this Williston team a threat to make a run. They beat a good Denellen team on the road, 42-12. Denellen's in the state playoffs. First Coast of Jacksonville. What are they? 3M.
Yeah,
they scored 53 points on the road in Jacksonville against them. So Don't count out Robbie Pruitt. Now, interesting enough, I actually broadcast their game on October the 6th at Newberry. Newberry scored with about 4 minutes to play in the game to take the lead, and Williston scores with less than a minute to play on a Statue of Liberty. Again, Robbie Pruitt has been around a long time, went into his bag of tricks and found a way to pull it out. So There's going to be some fun games in Region 4 in particular.
Hey, Josh, somebody asked us a question. Andrew Boone asked us, can you tell me how Berlin Jesuit got in the playoffs at 4-6?
We'll pop those questions up.
We'll
pop these questions up.
How do you do that?
I mean, I think I'll just pop these questions up on the screen here, and we can pop them up as we go along. But
I don't know how to do it. But Andrew asked that, and their strength of schedule is the whole thing, because he asked how Everglades, Miramar Everglades. Well, Miramar Everglades got beat pretty bad in their last 2 games. Miramar beat them, and then they got crushed by West Broward, and that pretty much was their fate. The teams that they played, some of the tougher teams, didn't do very well this year. But that's how. And then Piper got in. Piper got in because they had a really huge win over Plantation, and they won their district. That's why Piper got in too. If you could tell me how to pop these up, I got a whole.
I'm not sure if you can do it on your end, because I can do it on my end. It's a thing. I think it's because I'm in the producer mode, and it's a thing I can take the show. So if there's a question,
this is popping up.
We can pop them up.
Yeah, this is popping not up on my thing, but this is popping up on our chat thing here.
Hey guys,
you can watch the chat. Yeah, so I'll pop them up. And so Osceola made that schedule. If we're going back to here, Keith Simmons made that. Osceola made that schedule knowing that they would get in. Anyways, a good battle tested. That we were talking about Osceola. I know Dan was, and he's right. That schedule that Osceola made, they knew they were going to be in regardless, because that district was going to be pretty weak. But that schedule, they're battle tested. They had some injuries. I know Osceola had some injuries to start the season. I think Dan can confirm that one, and that's part of the reason why they had several losses early on in the season before they finally got to the midway stretch and started winning some games.
Josh, the other thing too is, Larry and I were talking about this last year, right? That Treasure Coast was the best 5-5 team in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Well, right now, Osceola might be the best 4-6 team in the state of Florida. Because again,
absolutely,
up and how they're lined up. Plus, again, them getting healthy. I think again that's going to be part of that conversation. But we'll get there when we get there.
Hey, you got me, guys?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we got Irish Bill, and now we're going to circle back to Irish Bill here. We're going to keep moving here, try to keep move this along here real quick. Irish Bill, let's go to, in terms of talking about that 4S Region 1 with Pace. Let's explain it real quick to everybody. I think it's simple. I think it's simpler than people are trying to make it out to be. Why Pace is not in the playoffs? I mean, I think they can control their own destiny in that situation.
Well, it's unfortunate, that a team has to go 9-1 just to make the playoffs. But Pace had it all in front of them. In that game against Navarre, they did not convert any of their extra point conversions, whether it be a 2-point or an extra point. So they missed all 4 of their extra point conversions. If they beat Navarre, they're in, and Navarre is out, plain and simple. But they weren't counting on Mosley to upset Niceville on that Thursday night game. You can't predict upsets. Unfortunately, Mosley took out Niceville, a very strong Niceville team. They made their way in, and eventually you just got to play your way in.
No, absolutely, and that's the case right there. All right, we're going to move this along here and everything. We've got Class 1S Regions 1 and 2 sitting there right there on the screen right now. Really nothing is really shocking here. Trinity Catholic might be that one team that is interesting. 3-7, they were the state runner-up last year. 3-7, but they're hosting Holy Trinity in that 2-3 matchup. But Mike, real quick to you on this one. Do you think Trinity Catholic could make a run here to the state championship game and potentially win it this year, despite the fact of being 3-7? Oh, Mike might have paused himself, muted himself. Let's see what happened there.
Yeah, there we go. You got me now?
That's not always a bad thing.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, Trinity Catholic, do not be deceived by their 3-7 record. I actually broadcast their game this past Friday. Now, granted, they played Buholtz. 42-7 at the half. We had a running clock in the second half. Trinity Catholic was able to score a couple touchdowns in the second half, but you look at their 7 losses. I mean, they opened up the season. Clearwater Central Catholic, one of the top teams in state, regardless of classification. They lost to Carrollwood Day of Tampa, Jacksonville Reigns, Florida High of Tallahassee, Calvary Christian of Clearwater. They went to Ohio and played St. Xavier, Cincinnati, Ohio, one of the top 25 teams in the state of Ohio. So they have played the type of schedule that gets you ready for the postseason. They've got some experience with being in the state championship game last year. You never want to count out John Brantley, the head coach of the Celtics. So certainly, yeah, they could win a state title this year. I don't know if they will, but I think they could get back to the state championship game.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you. They're a good team. And, that second round game against Melbourne Central Catholic will be good. Coach Hooks has done a tremendous job. Got to remember, they were kind of dormant for the last 2-3 years. He came back in. He was at Cocoa. He was at Holy Trinity before. So he knows the area. But, yeah, I watched John's team all summer. They got the right kid at quarterback, is really nice, very athletic. You're right. They got size. I just think, when I was looking at all those teams, it's got to be a rematch because I don't think anybody in the South is going to beat First Baptist. They've played a crazy schedule that includes 4M teams, 3M teams. So
no, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right, Blue.
Yeah, they got better by that, but I agree with you, Mike. I mean, Trinity is a well-coached team. I think that, when Coach put out something today when he found out where they were seated, I think he was like a little Cheshire cat. I mean, he kind of knows what his team is capable of, and I 100% agree with you. They could get right back to where they were last year.
And he talked about the schedule. He talked about the schedule that they played. He said no game will be a surprise to us in the postseason because of the schedule we play.
No doubt.
No, absolutely. Let's roll into 1M here real quick. Of course, a lot of the usual suspects that we expected here to be in the bracket. Providence, a team that wasn't in the playoffs last year, sitting there. They're in this year and had a really strong season there. Of course, head coach Mo Williams sitting there doing really well and beat University Christian this year, which helped them get into the playoffs. A big statement there, right there. But you look at there that Region 2 in Class 1M, you got CCC and Carrollwood Day. Carrollwood Day lost by 1 point to CCC, so I think that rematch is coming, and Carrollwood Day wants to have a word with CCC about that. So let's keep that in mind here. Blue, I think that's a strong possibility. Could CCC get upset in that second round? Do you think Carrollwood Day is going to have it for the Marauders in that?
Well, having watched Clearwater Central Catholic up close and personal the other day against Cardinal Gibbons, it's going to be awfully tough to beat them. And remember, in that first Carrollwood Day game, they were without 4 starters. So I think that people are going to be really surprised at what Central Catholic has to offer. No, they're not going to push Chaminade because I don't think the Packers could push Chaminade. But when you take a look at what they bring to the table.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good, Blue. That was good, Blue.
I'm just saying, you got to call it what it is. But definitely, I think, I may go to that game next in 2 weeks, the second round, because I think that's going to be a great game. Like I said, I got a chance to watch the kid Jerquan the other day play quarterback. Jaffe, who's going to Ole Miss. He reminded me of one of those soccer players that gets hurt. He was down. They had to help him off. And the next thing I know, he blocked the punt. So they've got dudes, and they're well coached.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's that's a game that I would like to see, that second round game. And let's not sleep on Carrollwood, because they have upwards of 9 and 10 Division I kids on that roster.
No, absolutely. Of course, looking at Regions 3-4 real quick in 1M, of course, you should see Chaminade Madonna, the by and far large favorite there in 1M to repeat again this year. But the one interesting matchup I'll point out here real quick, and I think Blue will agree with me on this one, that Cardinal Newman-Benjamin matchup, that was only a 3-point game there in the regular season. And that could be a real battle there again there between the Crusaders and the Buccaneers. And it's going to be a fight there come not this weekend, but next weekend when the Class 1S and 1M have their regional semifinal games on the 17th of November.
Yeah.
So
the other thing too, guys, is we're going to get into some of these rematches. How difficult is it to beat a team twice in 1 year?
Good question there, right there. I think it's going to be difficult, Dan. I really think it is difficult. It's hard to beat the same team twice in one season. I really agree with you on that one. What else? What else do you think? If anybody else agree or disagree on that one?
Let's go.
Yeah. The only thing is Newman's coming off a huge win. They beat a good 4S team in Palm Beach Central pretty good over the weekend. Their first go around, Luke Warnock, the quarterback, wasn't at full strength. So, and I think the world of Jack Daniels, great coach. Did a great job back in the day. With Dwyer, and that's another second round match. You got, Benjamin or Cardinal Newman going to Chaminade. Not that, but I've seen Chaminade, play earlier the year when Coconut Creek took them right down to the wire. And Creek is, when we get to that, I got a few words for some of these fans who are already penning in one of our favorites to the state championships, because Coconut Creek will dominate any team. They showed it against Chaminade up front. They just don't have all the skill kids to win it all.
No, that's a thing, and we'll definitely let Blue have his words on that one here. But going into 2S, in the Class 2S, Irish Bill, definitely a lot of panhandle teams here for in this situation. Of course, you got Walton, South Walton matching up, Pensacola Catholic hosting Swanee, Wakulla, Gadsden County, Florida High, Mariana, and of course, as you said, a lot of rematches here. Dan, you talk about it, the rematches. We're getting into that here. And we're seeing a lot of that here in that first round, and probably outside of the Pensacola Catholic Swanee game. But for Irish Bill, for you, what does it say here with these teams here, especially in 2S? Because I heard some comments from Harry Lees, the head coach at West Florida, and I think they were kind of a little missed there, miffed there that they kind of missed out.
Yeah, well, Florida High had a good playoff matchup Friday night against Lincoln. That's always a tough matchup there to get them ready. They're going to be a tough out. Wakulla, Hayden Cleese, what a season he's had at Wakulla. I think one of the better quarterbacks in the Panhandle region. They're going to be a tough out, finish the season unbeaten. 2S, Swanee, you thought was going to be up there for a while, and then they kind of struggled down the stretch. It's funny because Swanee's where Coach Walls, the Navarre head coach, where he start at is Swanee. But I think it's going to come down to Wakulla and Florida coming out of that 2S District 3 and 4. And then you go over to Districts 1 and 2. Walton, what a season they had behind quarterback Wells Bentonhausen. They got a Division I kicker that's really solid. Catholic, it's going to come down to Walton and Catholic matchup in that one again. South Walton, they replaced a lot of parts. They got a quarterback, Carson Hawk, that's doing a great job there for Coach Tees. But the rest of the District 2, they've kind of fallen off, especially in the Panama City area. It's been kind of a struggle, hit or miss in the Panama City region as well.
No, absolutely. And of course, Real quick, Region 2 here. You see Bradford has that 1 seed. Bradford is, it's kind of this region's kind of a little bit of a weak region, but a lot of people expect Bradford to get out of this region here, and I expect them after seeing them Friday night. Their defense is just playing sideline to sideline, end zone to end zone. They have got a really, really strong defense. Of course, Blues saw them a few weeks ago when they came down to play True North. I think we can all say that Bradford defense, they're really, really good, and that's one team you do not want to be messing with here in the playoffs here. But looking at it, sitting there, Yulee at 2 seed, but I mean that's kind of give or take, because Yulee didn't even win their district. Baker County did. Baker County is that 3 seed. So again, it's Bradford's region to lose here. But I think Mike and Blue probably would agree with me. This is Bradford's everything. This is for all of them to lose, basically.
They're not consumed with the region. I can tell you that. That's they're going to win that top half. It's just that when they go into Region 3 and you see 4 9-1 teams, plus Cocoa, who I think is easily top 5 in the state. I don't care what classification. I mean, they should have beaten St. Thomas. They played everybody tough this year. Ryan Schneider put it on when he had to. And I don't think we know Coco's the overwhelming favorite here. It would take pretty much an act of somebody for them not to. And you got to give Titusville credit. Best team record since 1984.
Yeah.
I mean, let's give them credit.
That's crazy.
9-1.
Yeah,
the only loss was to Cocoa. But that region has got to be his tougher region, especially with the Cocoa, Hudson, South Sumter, and Titusville. And then you have Dunellen, as Mike said before, and Eustis has had a pretty good year this year. And, they beat Mount Dora when they had to for the district title. So, that Region 3 is off the charts.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Frank Scott with Eustis has done a great job. It's just that's a tough draw to get Cocoa in the first match.
Yeah.
Also, just commenting on Titusville and Palm Bay, both of those teams have had outstanding seasons. But, I know that everybody wants to talk about strength of schedule, and yes, strength of schedule matters. And I think that's what we're seeing, right? We see a lot of 6-4 teams, 7-3 teams aren't even making the playoffs.
Right.
But, football programs, and this is kind of my beef with classifications, right? Classifications don't matter anymore. They're placeholders.
You might be right, Dan. I think maybe is district something that that we need to talk about too at some point. Does the district title mean anything too?
I mean, district. Listen, I think district championships are great feathers to put in your cap. I think it's something that you should be striving for, is to be a district championship. I think there's a lot of merit in that. But when Blue made the comments, Chaminade Madonna might be one of the top programs in the nation.
Yeah.
But they have 500 students and 125 of them are football players.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
There you go.
Cocoa is a top 4 program in the state of Florida, but they're 2S. So, again, I don't get into that. People are like, oh, well, a 2S school beat a 4M school. So what?
Yeah.
The classification number doesn't really matter at this point. It really doesn't, and we see that in the rankings. We see in Blues top 25. You see
especially
in my top 25.
Yeah, excuse me, Josh. Especially with the transfer portal these days.
You're not wrong there, Mike. You are definitely not wrong on that one. It's definitely a factor. And of course, Region 4, Bishop Verot, 9-1. Bishop Verot, I mean, they were close last year to get into the state championship game. They may have something to say there. 9-1. Richie Road doing really wonderful things there with those Vikings. And of course, I think so. The early 90s, I want to say it's 93 or 94. Bishop Verot got to the state championship game, Blue,
yeah.
and I think it might have been 94 because they faced Union County and they got steamrolled by the coach that everybody familiarly knows, who's at Williston right now, Robbie Pruitt.
Yeah, well, Verot's really good, and they had a real good opportunity to go to win the state last year. They just got against a pretty hot team in Florida High. But this year, their only loss was to Tampa Jesuit. And I kind of told Dan when after that game, Jesuit has been pretty damn good. I think it took a wake-up call from Columbus and Treasure Coast for Tampa Jesuit to get back on track, and that loss to them kind of put Verot on a path, and it's going to be awfully tough. I mean, first of all, Fort Meade's had a great year. I don't think they're in that class. I mean, they're going to have to meet Frostproof for the second time, and it was a close game the first go-around. But Verot, I think, in Region 4, and then certainly, they're going to have to tangle with Cocoa to get to state, and that's not going to be any picnic. But again, here's a perfect example that Region 3 and Region 4 are far superior than the top two.
No, absolutely. And rolling along here, we got to get into 2M real quick. And at 2M, but I think it's pretty clear what's happening here in terms of 2M. I mean, you see Rain sitting there 1. I think that's that in Region 1 that Rain's is going to be 1, and Bishop Morris number 3. So it's kind of interesting. But Rain's I expect to merge out of that region. But I think the
go
teams
back
that
to
people
that
are
region
talking
real quick, Josh, because what's the common denominator here? Take a look at that entire region.
It's all pretty much Jacksonville except Bishop Morris.
There you go.
I mean, that's the common denominator. It's pretty much it's going to be and Bishop Moore is going to be. You might want to have something to say about that. Of course, they were sitting there looking like they were going to be a 2 seed, but ended up getting that 3 seed instead. But I think the big thing that people are talking about is what happens in regions 3 and 4, because most likely your state champion in 2M is going to be one of 3 teams. It's either going to be Miami Norland, Miami Central, or maybe it's American Heritage Plantation. Those are the 3 teams right now that I feel like are the best 3 teams sitting there out of the entire 2M classification. It's going to be a South Florida versus South Florida matchup again. I feel like in that 2M matchup. What do you feel, Blue, on that one?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't jump to it. I mean, first of all, you take a look at a couple of these teams that you had mentioned, and certainly in 2M. I mean, New Orleans had a really good year, but they were 20-0 down at the half to Central in the first go around. 19-7 to Booker T. They were down when their quarterback got hurt. So there could be a little vulnerability, but I think the team that's probably played as good as anybody, and you just mentioned it, is American Heritage. They've got an opportunity, Heritage, to first of all, they'll beat the lights off of North Broward Prep, and then the Somerset Canyons or Kings. So you put them into the finals, and it's going to be probably Gibbons, their region, and they just took Gibbons apart. So they get there, and then they find themselves having to go, because they reshuffle, so you don't know what's going to happen. But certainly Booker T is a team that I wouldn't sleep on. Ice Harris did a great job this year, even without his quarterback. They only lost once, and that was a game against Miami Central. Or they lost twice. They lost to New Orleans too. But that first Miami Central game was pretty good, and that's going to be the second round game, Booker T and Central, because obviously New Orleans is going to be in a number 1 seed, skip right in there. But I think the 3 teams that have a legitimate shot are Booker T, Central, and obviously and our 4 Norland and Heritage. So, but don't sleep on Heritage, and so I think they're a really good team, and Berkeley Prep has played real well. I just don't think they've.
No,
I don't think they've got enough, and got to give Mike Williams credit at Tampa Robinson, what he did this year. He turned that program completely around as well.
No, absolutely, and and Dan, do you think there's any chance of that, especially since it's only one Central Florida team? Do you think Bishop Moore even has a chance here, or is it just kind of it's especially the way they start out 0-3, but just kind of they've been like picking up steam here especially in the second half of the season?
Well, the thing about Bishop Moore is, and I think you can appreciate this, you have to look at how they're made up. They're one of the youngest teams I've seen around. A lot of young talent, a lot of sophomores and juniors on that team. They have very few seniors on that program. But Coach Matt Hedrick's always been in the mix of those things. I think it actually plays into their favor to be a 3, that home game first, and then we'll see what happens from there on. But and not only that, they have never been afraid to play on the road.
No, absolutely. And of course it showed last year when they went up to Bishop Kenny, and rolled them there. So we'll see what happens there in that case here. But rolling into 3S Region 1, pretty much a familiar region for a lot of people here on the panel here, especially for Irish Bill. A lot of Panhandle teams sitting here in this bracket here. Of course, you see St. Augustine sitting at that 1 seed, Pine Forest 4, Lincoln 2, Choctaw 3. I mean, of course, you see Escambia 5, and there's quite a few Panhandle teams here. But as obviously we get towards the further east, see there Columbia sitting there. Columbia ended up taking a big loss to Vero Beach, and then losing out on a home game, so them having to go to Choctaw. Irish Bill, what looking at this, how do you feel on this one here in terms of Region 1 and 3S?
Well, I think St. Augustine is the top of the class in this bracket. But don't count out Choctaw. They're playing very strong football after that opening that night loss to Pace. They turned it around and they played they took everybody, gave them their best shot. The game I really like in the first round there is that Escambia Pine Forest. They had a great defensive battle in the first one, a 14-7 win for Pine Forest. And Coach Tony Carter in his first year there at Pine Forest, not afraid to play anybody as they went down and played IMG Academy. Yeah, they took their licks, but I thought that was a great opportunity for them to show where they're at with their program. Escambia, led by Anthony Hall, quarterback. He's had an outstanding season. But Choctaw, just total defense, total offense, running of Cole Tabb and Jesse Winslet at quarterback. I think it's going to come down to Choctaw and St. Augustine in that one, in my opinion.
No, I'm seeing a lot of head shaking here, and I don't disagree with you.
But I don't disagree with you there. I do want to give a shout out. You got to say a lot for what Matt Forrest has done at Matanzas. He's really built that program back, and again, talk about Road Warriors. They're the only team. They're the furthest east team in this region.
Yeah, no, they're going to definitely be Road Warriors having to make that trip out to Lincoln. And, of course, looking at Region 2 real quick, you see Vanguard got the 1 seed. A lot of people are upset about Lake Wells, who won a perfect 10-0, getting that 2 seed against the Vanguard team that has 2 losses there. So that's going to be a tough one. They're kind of sitting there like scratching their head on that one. But Vanguard, the strength of schedule, I think Lake Wells, it's that strength of schedule. And I think, y'all look at it, it's definitely shows that, sometimes the records can be very deceiving sometimes.
Well, and a case in point, I hate to revert back to Region 1, but Columbia enters the playoffs at 4-5. They started the year at 0-4 with losses to Buholtz, DeLand, Madison County, and Jacksonville Trinity Christian. Mm-hmm. So, and then they won 4 in a row before they lost to Vero Beach. And as you mentioned, they lost out on a home game because of it. But that's a case in point where, again, Trinity Catholic, I mentioned earlier, with only 3 wins. Don't be deceived by the overall record, because these teams are playing up in schedule, playing a tougher schedule, because they knew, number one, it would help them in the postseason, but they also knew it would help them get into the postseason based on the FHSAA rankings.
No, I don't disagree there, and I think Blue, I'm not sure. Did you may have accidentally mute yourself, or because I know you were trying to say something?
No, I'm all right. Okay. I was coughing, so I didn't want. But I definitely agree with what Bill said. But I can't take my eye off of what Frank has done at Choctaw.
Go back to Region 2.
All right, go back to Region 2. Yeah, let's go back to Region 2 there on the screen.
Go ahead, Blue.
Yeah, well, that Region 1 is going to come down to some pretty good teams. St. Augustine has played as well as anybody. We saw. Excuse me. John and I saw them during the summer. Quarterback-wise, they're outstanding. They always are. They got talent all over the place. I kind of agree with Escambia and Pine Forest. Those are 2 teams that kind of will knock heads a little bit. Lincoln is, give them credit. Lincoln really has had a great, great year. They lost a couple of tough games. But I understand what you're saying about Columbia, but what Choctaw's done and springing an upset last year and kind of getting recognized right off the bat, I think that in Region 1, I think, it's between them and St. Augustine. And, I saw Vanguard. I mean, they were pretty good and they had a good, had a good run, but I don't think in that region. I just think Lake Wales got a little bit too much for everybody. kind of a cocky team. They're defending state champions. And as Dan and I were talking, let's give it to Leesburg for what they did. That's the first time that Leesburg has been over 30 years since they've won 9 games in the season. So
absolutely.
9-1, close game. Their only loss is to Vanguard. I think that sets up. I like that Leesburg Auburndale matchup in the first round. But yeah, I can see where Lake Wales might be a little bit upset because again, Stephen Moffitt in that program, they may have to get by them to even talk about getting out of that region.
Yeah, well. But we know Lake Wales got that right amount of cocky in them there. They got some athletes. They're well coached, and they've been there, done that. So, and we can't, here's that first round Zephyr Hills, Cypress Creek game. The only loss that Cypress Creek had is the Zephyr Hills, and Zephyr Hills feels that they have something to prove. As well. And obviously those top 2 regions are going to be really competitive. But then you get into region 3 and 4, and all eyes are on mainland. As Dan said, they had a kind of a wake up call last week in a major way. It's just, seems like the same supporting cast that's in the region, but as our friend Balin would say, "Oh galley."
Oh galley, yes. How about galley? How about
you galley?
Yeah, you galley. That's right.
You galley.
And I love this region because again, you have to give a lot of credit to Coach Sands and O'Galley. They've had an amazing season over there. But mainland, you're right, they were undefeated going to the Lake Mary game. Lake Mary just put it on them, and I think that makes mainland even more dangerous, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I agree. And then region 4. Golden Gate gets that number 1 seed because they beat Naples for the first time in 59,000 years. So they get an opportunity to. Yeah, they get an opportunity, but they may see Naples in that second round. Paris is nice; they've done really good. I just think they kind of faded at the end. Baron Collier's done a really good job, but I think. And Dunbar is a team, they'll get Golden Gate, and the winner of that will most likely get Naples. So it's seems like it's playing out a lot like it did last year. I mean, the Rockledge, the Jensen Beaches, and Dan, you and I talk about that. It's obviously not you can't say enough what they've done at Jensen Beach over the last 4 years. But they take a serious step up in talent in that second game.
No, absolutely. I mean, and Class 3S. There's a lot of solid teams here, but it may as a lot of people thought mainland may have been the strongest team starting out of the season, but it may be St. Augustine's to win now. After especially mainland got that wake up call, we'll have to see. I'm really interested to see how it evolves, and of course, Lake Wales, the defending state champion. I think this bracket's going to be really fun to watch. Just 3S alone, they're really a lot of strong teams, and can't go wrong here in terms of who made the playoffs this year in this classification for sure. All right, rolling into Class 3M here, definitely into the Metro side of things here, but Edgewater taking that number 1 seed overall, but then, of course, you got Jones and Oviedo. Oviedo's going to end up hosting Jones in that 4-5 matchup because of the way the rules are. The district champs host in the first round if they're a lower seed and hosting a higher at-large team. And of course, you see Armwood sitting there at that 2-7. Of course, I believe Armwood was a team that missed last year, didn't make the playoffs, but here they are sitting there 9-1, and then they're in. And of course, that Tampa Bay Tech Fletcher gets a rematch this year, but Tampa Bay Tech will get the host instead of them going up to Fletcher. And go to Dan on this one, Edgewater, they just been playing a perfect 10-0 season for the Eagles. They're rolling into this thing, and they're
second straight year,
but second straight year. It's crazy. But Jones sitting there, Jones is probably chomping at the bits to hopefully get a rematch with Edgewater in the regional semis.
Watch out what you wish for.
And ironically, coming out, we're going to see this being Orlando versus Tampa. And that's what's crazy about this. And we start talking about, those rematches with, Tampa Bay Tech and Armwood, and you start talking about potentially Jones and Edgewater, what does that look like? Edgewater took Jones out again, but we saw this last year. Edgewater won that game during the regular season. We got to the playoffs, And a lot of people, I was asked beginning of the season, who is the most dangerous team in Central Florida? And this is across the board. It was Jones. I called it being Jones. I still think they are, even with a slow start. I made a comment about week 4, week 5 was, what does Jones have to do to get back? And it wasn't beating the rest of their schedule. It was demolishing the rest of their schedule. And they did that.
Right.
No. And of course, we'll bring up more of the comments here a little bit, after we kind of finish trying to get through the rest of these brackets here. But there's a lot of good comments here that I'm seeing in the chat. Of course, the guests can see the comments too, and we do see a lot of that, the thing in the question. So we'll bring those comments up here. But let's try to get through the rest of these brackets here, 3M, and then we got 4S, 4M left to kind of hit on here real quick here. But as you can see, a lot of Hillsborough, Pinellas County teams here in that region too, but it looks like it might be Jesuits to lose here, basically, who has been it looks like they kind of come out like we were wondering what was going on, but Jesuit showing here as of late they are taking on and flexing their muscle really strongly, especially after flexing muscle big against Tampa Catholic to wrap up the regular season there. But looking at it, Largo has much improved, and they number 2 seed this year, got the district championship, and they had 9-1 this year for the Largo Packers. So, the real quick, is there any surprises here, or do you think for y'all is it Jesuit, especially Blue and Dan, for especially Blue, do you think it's Jesuit coming out of this one?
It could be pretty interesting to see what happens, because Jesuits played extremely well of late. But you can't discount, the job that, that a team like Tampa Bay Tech is capable of. And Armwood is played as hot as anybody. But all roads to me, and I've said it all year, and Dan knows, Orlando Edgewater. I penciled them in at the beginning of the year as a team that would go to the state finals, and I still believe that they're going to be right in that mix, and they're just going to be, they're well coached. They got dudes. They got a lot of talent, and they got a lot of depth. And
they're better than they were last year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More experience.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I don't disagree. Yeah, it's the thing. And of course, we get into Region 3 here, because Blue did say he had a few comments about this region with Coconut Creek, because everybody's trying to pencil in their favorite St. Thomas Aquinas here. Blue, the floor is yours to have those few words about what regarding Coconut Creek.
Well, the Creek has proven themselves this year. They've played an extremely competitive schedule. Not all their games have been tough, but they rose to the occasion against Chaminade, Blanche Ely, Plantation, and they're a team that obviously. And I'm not going to sleep on Delray Atlantic, because Coach Murray is just he's played lights out. So that's a second round game. I think that St. Thomas just rolls into that, region championship game, because there's no way Plantation is going to beat them. And Dillard's, Dillard Ely is Dillard Ely this year. But West Boca has had a really good year. I got to give them credit. They beat Ely. They even said last year, watch us next year, and they were right. They've done a tremendous job. But Atlantic's going to be a real big hurdle for them in the first round, and then Creek. And, very competitive. I think down in the next region 4, that Homestead would have to do a collapse job not to win that, because they're so much better than they're 21 points better than anybody in that whole region. So it would be that Homestead's they're hungry for what happened last year to them against St. Thomas in the final game.
No, you're not wrong there. The Broncos are definitely looking like, hey, let's see if we can get back to the state semifinals and get that state championship rematch with St. Thomas Aquinas.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how everything shakes out there in 3M as we roll into the playoffs. All right, into 4S real quick here. This is more region, especially this is where we've talked about the whole situation with Pace here with Irish Bill. But Mike, we've seen Buchholz a few times already this year. Buchholz is 10-0, first time since 2001. And the Bobcats, Chuck Bell, his first year of Buchholz alum. Of course, they got Trace Johnson, who is the son of Doug Johnson, who is a Buchholz Bobcats legacy there. I mean, this is Buchholz's region to lose right this second, because they have just been playing like really strong football, and they really gave it to Trinity Catholic on Friday night to close out the regular season.
You asked at the beginning of the show some surprises. For me, one of the surprises, and a kudos to Steve Reynolds, who was able to get Keystone Heights in the playoffs. I saw them in week 1 against Eastside. They got beat 35-0, and I thought, okay, it might be a tough year for the Indians, but they're in as a 7 seed, I think, in their region.
And
so
2S region too.
Yeah, congratulations, Keystone. But with Buchholz, that's my other surprise. When you consider the fact that they had Mr. Football, Creed Whittemore, quarterback, who's now at Mississippi State, Jaron Hamilton, wide receiver, who's now playing at Alabama, Jakari Kelly, another wide receiver, Gavin Hill, defensive end, who's playing at Florida, and to think that they may be better this year with a sophomore quarterback and a sophomore wide receiver, somehow they may be, though. Justin Williams has stepped up for them at wide receiver. Trace Johnson, as you mentioned, the son of former Gator Doug Johnson, has thrown for over 2,000 yards this year. But the difference maker for them has been Miles Graham,
beast,
University of Florida commit. He is a man amongst boys. Yeah. And if you have a game on the line, you just put him in the backfield with Quentin Cutler, who rushed for 1,000 yards last year. It was funny because their game against Trinity Catholic, Cutler was throwing the block for Miles Graham to run instead of the other way around. Defense, has been pretty good for them this year. Sure. The biggest surprise, though, is that they are a number 1 overall seed. So not only has Chuck Bell, as you mentioned, gotten them their first unbeaten regular season since 2001, but the overall number 1 seed, which means they could play the state semifinals at Citizens Field. They've had their scare. They've had their wake-up call a couple of weeks ago against Fleming Island. They were able to rally down in the fourth quarter in that one, and I think that was their wake-up call. Now, can they compete, when you get to a Venice, for example, which had them 28-0 at one point before Buchholz came storming back, or a Lakeland, Treasure Coast? I don't know, but Buchholz has been a big surprise in my opinion.
No, and and real quick here before we move in, as we could try to move this along here, of course, you see that Ponte Vedra 4-5 matchup, Niceville 2-7, Navarre, Irish Bill very familiar with Navarre, and that 3-6 matchup with Bartram Trail. They'll host Bartram Trail, but again, the biggest miss that we've all talked about is on social media all day is pace missing, and the question would have been, if Mosley had not pulled the upset on Niceville, would we be even talking about any of this? That's what the beauty of it is. At the end of the day, you can control your own destiny, win the district you're in.
And real quick, Josh, you say win your district and you're in. Buchholz is in the same district, 4S District 3, as Bartram Trail, which is the 3 seed, and Creekside, which is the 5 seed. So 3 teams from that district are in the state playoffs.
And that shows you that sometimes some districts are not all districts are not created equal. Let's just say that.
Hey, Josh, I want to get in here for a second. A lot of times I hear about the strength of schedules, and one disadvantage that the Panhandle has is some of their budgets are not very high. So it's hard for them to travel into other parts of the state of Florida to get those strength of schedule increases like Pace possibly needed this year. To make it into the playoffs. But Niceville's done it for quite a while. Coach Grant Thompson's doing a heck of a job over there at Niceville High. Jay Wall's been consistent, just doesn't have the depth to go deep into the playoffs. I'm looking forward to the Bartram Trail game. I've never seen them play. This Friday night, I'll be doing that game on my website. But I'm anxious because I got to see Creekside last year. They had a heck of a team. And I got to see Creed Whittemore when they came over and played Navarre and actually did a real job on Navarre in that one. But Navarre will fight you. I don't know if they have enough to get past Bartram Trail, but we'll see. They got a bunch of good young kids with a lot of heart, but sometimes heart doesn't always win you games.
I know there's been some comments about Division 2 here in 4S. Lakeland, the defending state champs, sitting there, that 1 seed there, even though they took 3 losses this year, all at home at Bryant Stadium. which is a little of norm for the Dreadnoughts, but still sitting there in that number 1 seed because of, again, that strength of schedule did play a big factor into that scenario there. But looking at it, when you were looking at these teams here, I mean, Polk County is very heavily represented in this bracket this year. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised though. I mean, our friends over there, Hassani Harper at H2 Recruit Athletes, and then of course Polkway, they would probably agree here that this, Polk County is playing some of their best football right now.
And also, Josh, let's take a look at how many brand new head coaches we have here. First time head coaches or brand new head coaches are in this that made the. You got to give kudos to a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think that is a key thing, looking at how many guys were our first-year coaches. It's an incredible thing. There's a lot of storylines here. I mean, I not even dissected all the storylines, and I think that the storylines here coming into the playoffs, this is probably going to be one of the years that it's going to be one of the most memorable years for playoffs. Like we had last year. Especially the way the state championships ended, and for 8 of the 9 classes. I think it's going to happen the same way here this year.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to knock off Lakeland, though. I mean, they beat 1, 2, 3 of those teams in the mix, and I mean. Wiregrass Ranch has done a great job. Luke Knight has come in and done a tremendous job at quarterback. Lake Mineola has done good, but they just haven't fared very well against Lakeland. And I don't see Lakeland losing out in Region 2. And you look at I'm more interested. I know Bill's interested in that Niceville and Navarre rematch, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. And it was a pretty decent game. I think I agree. Buchholz, yeah, they're way, way too tough. Good, interesting matchup. Does Lakeland have the offense to beat a team like Buchholz? And
I just don't know.
Yeah, they may not, but you never know. I mean, they've been there, done that, and and they're going to have to most likely if they play travel up there, but you don't know for sure. I think in Region 3, there's some pretty good teams. Obviously, I would never count out DeLand, and because of the job that Rick Darlington does, he can creep up on you. Palm Bay Heritage. I'll tell you what, you mentioned that before. Let me tell you, that's a really good football program.
Really good football team.
Oh,
yeah. And Danny,
there you go. Dan can talk about that right there.
Yeah. Well, Dan and I saw them last year at the media day, and the coach told me, he goes, wait till you see what we got. Our young kids are going to be really good. The Joseph Tenta, the quarterback, who kind of stole the show at the media day because these kids got like a 4.9 GPA, and but I'll tell you, it's going to be awfully tough to knock off Treasure Coast because this is a football team that you're going to need sometimes more than 3 or 4 days to prepare for. They run a funky offense. Their defense has done tremendous. Their 2 losses were obviously tough games against, I think St. Thomas went off on them, but that's only because they made up for what they didn't do last year. And Osceola is going to push them. And, Dan, you have been saying that for the longest time. So, I think in Region 3, you got, I think, Treasure Coast.
They're all rematches here, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, this is what's the beauty of it. It's like
you got to give credit to John Wilkinson to get New Smyrna Beach back in the fold, right?
He's great.
They lost to OC University. OC University has lost 1 game this year, and that was to DeLand. So you're looking at that matchup.
Yeah.
I love it, the fact that all 4 teams in 4S9 made it to the playoffs. That's what the beauty of it is. It shows, it's not, again, not all districts are created equal.
Yeah.
What I like, Josh, is that Larry bringing back the word funk. Like, I haven't heard that one in a long time.
Funk. I love it. I love it.
That's the OG in me. So I kind of rushed to the forefront with these old sayings.
We'll see if he shows up in bell bottoms to the state championship.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I can barely fit in.
By the way,
so they and then Region 4. If you don't pick Venison, you probably haven't followed this game.
Venice is going to dominate this region. This is clear cut. This is Venice's region here. I mean, looking at the rest of this, I mean, Manatee might be that one team on the very outside shot, but other than that, no. This is Venice. Venice is going to dominate here.
They're going to cruise all the way, and I think that really sets up what it kind of could be a very interesting 4M. And certainly,
there you go.
I think
Mike was talking about his region having three teams from a district. How about 4 teams from a district? How about Evans?
Yeah.
Evans hasn't been in the playoffs in how long? First year head coach Carlos Odom does a one job getting it back, but they got a rematch with Apopka. And this was, literally, we were just talking about this yesterday. We were looking at Apopka having to travel to Jacksonville to play Mandarin, but now Apopka hosts Evans. They just beat them pretty well 2 weeks ago. Lake Mary going to Boone, who's the 8th seed. Winter Park now hosts Mandarin. That's going to be interesting. Haggerty gets in, but they got to play Seminole. And I know there's a lot of talk of, Lake Mary's got the 1 seed, Seminole's got the 2 seed. At the end of the day, Winter Park's undefeated, guys. So are they tested now? Is Mandarin?
Yeah, they haven't. Well, I don't want to take any shots, but don't let Colonial and all those teams know. But they're undefeated. They haven't played a tough schedule at all. University and they see that's the thing. I'm really surprised at them that they didn't go out and schedule somebody really really good this year. And because they found out last year. They got to a certain level, and then Dan, you and I talk about this all the time. You can't make your living off of East River and Lake Howell. You just can't. Not taking a shot at your home area.
Again, Coach Shiflett's been around the block. He's been in this position before. But Mandarin coming in town. But again, you have to look at the scenarios here. Apopka's gotten 5 teams back, or 5 players back that they haven't had since week 3. Their quarterback's healthy. Apopka, if we're potentially looking at a Apopka Seminole rematch, that was a 7-3 game at halftime. Two of their starters, Apopka starters, got into a car accident that morning, couldn't play. But Seminole right now is playing the best ball that they played all season. Their big win over Lake Mary, in my opinion, was the best they had played all season. And they deserved that win. Down by 14, coming back on Lake Mary to win that game. Yeah. But right now, I think you have to take a look at Lake Mary is the cream of the crop. I think that's that wake-up call for Lake Mary. And we saw that against Mainland this past Friday night. Seminole had a bye week, so they got
let's talk about that.
They've had a bye week. So, they've had 2 weeks to get healthy. They've had 2 weeks to kind of get their game plan to find out who they're going to play. Coach Michaels over at Haggerty's done a wonderful job, but that's a tough place to go. That's a tough environment to play is going to Sanford. That community is going to go berserk on Friday night.
No, you're right, Dan. And real quick, Winter Park, they were supposed to play Brunswick, Georgia in week 2, and that game got canceled because of the hurricane. So what might have been potentially their best game of the season didn't even get played. So that's the thing. Y'all are right that they have not seen a team like Mandarin, and they're going to get challenged Friday night. So, all right, Region 2 here as we roll along here. Sumner taking that number 1 seed, a little bit of interesting that's because Sumner did not win their district, but that was Durant that's sitting there in that 5 seed. But behind Palm Harbor University, first time in school history, they're district champs in their game on Friday night, and they're hosting Durant. Nice. And of course, Plant, you see Plant sitting there back in the mix. And then, of course, you got the 2 Orlando teams there in Region 2, Olympia and Dr. Phillips, Dan. And the Olympia definitely has been playing some really strong football, but Dr. Phillips, good to see him back in at least in the playoff mix.
No doubt about it. I think, that's a rematch from 3 weeks ago. Olympia won that game against Dr. Phillips. It was at Dr. Phillips. Now they go to Olympia. And Olympia is that team that, we've watched all season long. They had so many transfers coming in that, that how do they gel? Romello Ware is a legit running back. That's all I got to say. Dr. Phillips has got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but I'm looking forward. We're potentially looking at Olympian Plant playing, and I think that is going to be one heck of a game.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that will be definitely a fun one to watch. There's going to be some great. I think there's going to be some great matchups. There's a question that I'll address here later once we get done through the rest of the 2 more brackets here of Region 3 and Region 4. But about asking about the keeping the current current playoff system the way it's formatted, especially with the matchups that we're getting, because I think once you get past the first round, I believe the second round matchups is what really is intriguing here, and I believe. And then here you go. And as we get into Region 3 and Class 4M, you've got Coconut Creek Monarch, 1 seed, Blue. I mean, Monarch, it's definitely showing some really strong life there this year, especially with head coach Calvin Davis. I mean, the Coconut Creek Monarch, they really just been really impressive this year. Of course, Palm Beach Central losing that game to Cardinal Newman slid them back from the 1 seed to the 2 seed. So, but Jupiter, how about the Jupiter Warriors, district champs for the first time in nearly 20 years? I mean, that's impressive right there. And of course, Coach Cradman, another name familiar to you, Blue, who used to be down at Miami Beach. Now he's up at Jupiter, and then it's got the Jupiter Warriors sitting there in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, a team like Monarch. They've done a really good job, and they've done it without A.J. Harrison, their number 1 quarterback. They've had a lot of freshmen that have had to step in. Obviously, they're reeling from last year's overtime loss to Palm Beach Gardens. So, obviously, they're going to be they should win this first-round matchup and then get ready for Gardens again, unless Hector and Santa Lucia's come up with a big surprise. I just still think that Palm Beach Central is going to come out of this. I just think that they had a wake-up call last couple of weeks, especially last week against Newman.
No, absolutely. And of course, last but not least, in terms of the brackets, Region 4, and there's defending state champ Columbus sitting there at that 1 seed. And of course, Miami Palmetto definitely looking like they've improved compared to last year, but sitting there at that number 2 seed. But Blue, really, this is, in my mind, this is Columbus's bracket to lose. But can a Palmetto and a Western potentially maybe throw a hook and sinker and get out of this?
Well, Columbus has played the last 3 weeks without their starting quarterback, and it made a difference because against Norland, they couldn't. They were right down there, but they could never get the ball in. Mendoza should be back, and that makes a difference for them. They run the ball well, really good defensive front. Palmetto's intriguing. They beat Homestead. They don't have a defined quarterback to me. And then that puts pressure for them to run the ball. And that's the reason why they lost to Homestead 15-0 in the first game, is because they didn't run the ball very well. Defensively, they're very good. That's going to be a challenge for them. But they have to get by Western. And I think that Western kind of got that wake-up call about a month ago, 5 weeks ago, when someone said, hey, by the way, you're 3-3. And they go, oh, well, we are? And boom, now they're 7-3. They're pretty much mauling everybody that they come across, and they're not going to be an easy out. That second round game against Palmetto is going to be a war. It's going to be a real war. And but Columbus is the favorite, defending state champions, and well coached and has a lot of talent.
Oh wow, yeah, absolutely. Now, with that said, here as we've gone through all the brackets here again, with the analysis and all that and everything else, when we're looking at everything here in terms of all this, if there's one team that y'all can really at this particular point you want to take and guess and everything here, what's the one team that you think could win the state championship that you did not think could win the state championship at the start of the season?
What, in 4M?
It doesn't matter what classification, just one team, and regardless of any classification.
I'll let them guys
but
go.
You think
think.
I would have to say, I don't know that it'll happen, but I would have to say Buchholz, because the fact that they're going to be at home until the state championship game. And once you get into a state championship game, who knows what could happen. Now, obviously, there's a lot of work to be done between now and then. They may not even be the best team, but that would be the biggest surprise to me out of any team, really, unless you have one of these teams that, maybe a losing record, but, that they're probably going to be beaten in the first round. But just for me in my area, I think Buchholz would have to be the biggest surprise. They haven't won a state championship since 1990.
Wow.
I'm going to jump in here, guys.
Wow.
I'm going to go down the 1R region. I like what the Bozeman Bucks have done so far this year. Peyton Gay at quarterback. He'll get you with the pass. He'll get you with the run. Their first, I believe, undefeated season in school history, if I remember right. I look for a deep run out of the Bozeman Bucks out of Panama City.
Dan.
This is tough.
One surprise, considering we did some media days together.
Well, considering if we're talking about that can win the state championship, you didn't think they possibly could at the beginning of the season, it would be Lake Mary. And this is why I don't think anybody truly understood how good their defense is until the last few weeks.
Okay,
man, I'll give you two here, but I'm going to piggyback off of Mike's one.
Josh.
No. Middleburg making the playoffs just for back-to-back years, the first time since 89-90. That's an accomplishment of itself. But there's no way they're beating St. Augustine. St. Augustine is a thing. I think that that's a third team I'll throw out there between what Dan said with Lake Mary, what Mike said with Buchholz, St. Augustine. I didn't think St. Augustine would be in the mix, considering I thought it was a lot of people were like Mainland, Lake Wells, but St. Augustine looks legitimately like they could run and win this thing. Brian Braddock has got his team well positioned here to make that deep run, and Mainland needs to keep the bullseyes on them here when it comes to looking at it. Them and Lake Wells, that the bullseyes on them, because St. Augustine's coming at y'all.
They kind of stole my thunder with that, because I was going to say St. Augustine.
I'm sorry, Blue.
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry, Blue.
Yeah, well, some places, I think American Heritage. I think nobody really mentioned them at the beginning of the year because everybody was concentrating on the 4-time defending state champion Central Rockets and the way that Norland kind of recruited. But I'll tell you what, I think Heritage doesn't back off against anybody. They could get they'll definitely win their region. I just, last year, it was a little bit tough on them. They had a tough game, going into the state championship game against Bowles. But I think they kind of blow everybody away in the region. And then they got to deal with one of the big boys in Region 4. But I think Heritage I'm going to pick as a real dark horse.
No, absolutely. Let's go through some of the comments real quick here. Of course, Emery Smith, he says whatever the FHA uses for playoff rankings, there's always going to be one person that's going to complain, and I think everybody agrees. There's somebody's always going to complain. Can't make everybody happy, and we'll go from there on that one there. But, and I'm looking at a couple of other comments that have been popped in here. Someone asked Larry, Everglades, I think you might have addressed it earlier, but Everglades missing. It's that's the
lost
tough
key
one
games
right there.
at the end. That was that hurt.
Someone mentioning about the 3-team districts, and I think a lot of us agree the 3-team districts, it kind of makes things a little thing where it makes it hard. It's like it's like win 2 games and you're in the playoffs. Some people want to see a change in that, so that's the big thing. And looking at a couple other questions here along the way, or comments here, and along the way, let's try to pull it up here real quick. Roll it down here because.
While you're looking at that, I got a question for all you guys. Could we ever see the district alignment still stay the way they are, but not play? You don't have to play the teams in your district. You can go out and play other teams, but then the 2 teams with the best record at the end of the season would then play each other for a district title. Could we see that?
But then why would you have a district then?
Well, as up here in the
that's my only question, Bill.
I think the biggest thing, Bill, we're seeing less of the conference play, where the traditional conferences, I think they've gone away. And you have to give a lot of credit. In my opinion, I think a lot of these programs have done a very good job scheduling harder schedules. If you start taking a look at a number of the teams that maybe have had a clear path to the state championship in the past, I think we've seen them go out, especially since Metro Suburban started 2 years ago. I think we've seen a lot of these teams go, we're going to start scheduling these over here because we're not going to see those matchups later in the year. I think you got to give a lot of credit to these head coaches that have actually gone out and scheduled very, very tough regular seasons.
Yeah, I've been asked about that, so that's why I brought that one up. But it's kind of hard here at Panhandle because we have to travel and a lot. And over the state championships for years, we've had to travel. Eventually, the funding that goes into traveling to Orlando all the time or wherever the state semifinals is at. It sends a little bit of these programs up here in the Panhandle. It's tough to compete that
Bill, I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, we don't
several years
disagree. I mean,
ago.
I think Larry and I talked about last year was Pine Ridge had to travel the furthest Pine Forest, excuse me, had to travel the furthest to Fort Lauderdale last year.
Yeah. But I like to go to battle for our Panhandle teams because I love our Panhandle teams up here, and we love our football up here. We may not be as strong as some people think we are, but we still love our football up here.
You got great
All
talent
right.
too, and you get to play Alabama teams. I'm kind of jealous, you know.
Well, we're kind of past time here, trying to wrap this up here real quick. But a couple other comments. Yeah, no, but no, everybody, I definitely appreciate all the comments, everything. We can't get all the comments. A lot of comments in the chat tonight. Definitely appreciate everybody commenting here, and I definitely appreciate Larry Blustein, Dan LaForest, Mike Ridaught, Irish Bill Hammel. Definitely appreciate all y'all joining us here tonight, and we definitely appreciate everybody who has been a part of this and given us a lot of great feedback and on the playoffs and everything. But we'll be back Tuesday night, talk more playoffs here on FortHSFootball.com and the FortHSFootball.com social media platforms. And I appreciate everybody joining us here, and we are going to sign off and appreciate it. Have a great night. We'll be back here on Tuesday night.
Veterans Day to everyone.
Oh, you too.
Thank you.